Life isn't fair. No one knows this better than Naruto Uzumaki. When he was 3 years old, he unlocked one of his 3 bloodlines, Bone Release. When his bloodline was unlocked, he gained crimson lines marking the outline of his eyelid, as well as 2 crimson dots on his forehead. He knew he was more different than some, but he didn't know why he was treated the way he was. I guess we'll just have to find out what happens, right? I wonder why they stare at me the way they do. The Akimichi heir had red swirls on his cheeks and is addicted to chips, the Nara heir looks dead on his feet, the Hyuga HD white eyes, and one girl even had bubblegum pink hair, yet I'm the one being stared at? Weird. I just ignored the looks I was getting and walked inside to look for my class. There were even more students inside, and they were either talking to other students or their parents, and for some reason I felt his pang go through my chest, but I couldn't figure out why. Shrugging it off, I looked around for my classroom, walking into it when I found it. The only 2 people there yet was my sensei and a kid with black hair and black eyes. The kid looked mad for some reason, and sensei didn't look like he wanted to talk to me, so I just went to the back of the classroom and took out my notepad and pen, waiting for the other students to come into the classroom. Ever so slowly my classmates trickled in, and once nearly everyone in the class was seated, I started writing down notes on my surroundings in my notepad, something I did whenever I was someplace I couldn't train yet didn't have anything else to do. Time, 8:45 a.m. Place, Konoha Ninja Academy. Other notes: the pink-haired girl and the Yamanaka heir seemed to be whispering to each other about the black-haired boy that I'd seen in class before, and most of the other girls seemed to be chatting about him as well with their friends, except for the Hyuga heir, who's looking at me like the other girls are looking at the black-haired boy. Odd. The Nara and Akimichi heir seem to be getting along, though since the Nara is sleeping on his desk and the Akimichi is focusing on his chips, I can't really tell all that well. Sensei looks irritated, no doubt because his ears are hurting from all the ruckus my fellow classmates are making, and the Inuzuka heir seems to be speaking with his Nin dog. The Aburame heir seems to be silently chatting and playing with his bugs, and the Hyuga heir is still staring at me. The black-haired kid is staring at sensei, whom looks like he is about to kill someone, and all the other kids aren't noteworthy. I couldn't write anymore as sensei's head grew larger than normal as he started shouting at everyone to be quiet. He pulled a piece of paper and a pen out of his pocket and started calling out names, and whenever someone's name was called out they had to stand and yell "here," for some reason. I found out the kids' names, and I was the last person to be called upon. Naruto Uzumaki? He yelled, and I stood up. Here. I didn't shout like the others, I stood up quietly before sitting back down just as quiet, ignoring the weird and or inquisitive looks I was given. With that, Irika-sensei, whom I learned the name of when he introduced himself before roll call, started the lesson up. It was on the history and geographical distribution of the Land of Fire, and I couldn't say I was all that interested in the lesson. I took notes on the herbs he described and what they did, but other than that the lesson was a bore and a large waste of time. By the time Irika-sensei finished the lesson I was quite angry at the fact we hadn't learned anything truly useful, and when Irika-sensei asked if anyone had any question, I raised my hand, and thus he called on me. When are we going to learn ninja techniques, or at the very least learn how to throw kunai and shuriken? For some reason, Irika-sensei seemed to find the question rather irritating, as he answered it like I was a 2-year-old asking a stupid question. You'll be learning such things in the 3rd year of Academy Naruto. Any other question? And with that he brushed me off. Since nobody had any more question, the class was dismissed for the day, and I couldn't have been more happy, and being happy wasn't an emotion I felt all that much. As soon as I'd put my notebook and pen into my pocket, I walked out of that room and out of the academy before running to my personal training ground. By the time I got there a light downpour had started, and so to try and keep my clothes dry I took them off and folded them before laying them underneath a tree, leaving me in my boxers. With that done I started going through my push-ups and sit-ups before going through my various stretches. After finishing with them I stood up and went into a horse stance before going through all of the blocks I knew. With my blocks done I stayed in my horse stance for 2 minutes longer before I stood up straight to do a front bend and a back bend. Once I'd stretched out my spine I started doing every kick and punch I knew, my movements working in tandem with each. The time I'd become slightly winded. It was a full-on downpour, the rain was making muddles everywhere which made my training even harder as I had to watch out for ground that was too loose. I started working with my bones, taking out a forearm in my left hand and a shoulder blade in my right, and I started making slashes at the raindrops that fell all around me. As I worked out I was thankful that the rain was keeping me from overheating as I worked, and I didn't stop till I felt the need to hunch over and just breath take over. I did just that, and after a minute or so of calming down I stood straight and sent chakra into my knuckles, causing my knuckles to break through my skin and then elongate, turning into knuckle daggers when I finally stopped pushing chakra into that part of my skeletal system. They were around 6 inches long, and they were a beautiful gleaming white. The blade part was extremely sharpened and the tip of the blades held unforgiving points. I started punching the air, and since I didn't have a true fighting style I just went over different punches and swung my arms around, remembering to keep at least one arm at my chest for protection every time I punched the air. I didn't stop for what seemed to be hours. I worked on different things and didn't stop till I felt ready to collapse. The rain had lessened by then, and so on the walk home the streets were barren of people yet filled with puddles. When I reached my apartment building I didn't spare the steps up a glance. I instead channeled chakra to my feet and walked up the side, heading towards my forever open bedroom window. As I climbed into my room the sun could be seen peeking out from behind the clouds, but I paid it no mind as I collapsed onto my bed, letting sleep take over. 9:47 p.m. When I woke up I immediately went to the bathroom and took a shower. I didn't sleep much at night time anymore after an incident on my 5th birthday, so this was a routine for me by now. After my shower I got on a pair of black sweatpants, a light gray shirt and my black ninja sandals and went into the kitchen, not caring enough to brush my hair. It would just spike back up anyways. I made myself a peanut butter and apple jelly sandwich and poured myself a glass of grape juice to go with it before I sat at my table, wolfing down the meal. After washing the dishes I thought over what activities I could do tonight. I couldn't go visit anyone since I didn't have any friends, and even if I did we wouldn't be able to play. Nearly all the restaurants were closed, and I'd just eaten anyways, so the only other thing I could think to do was to go train, so I prepared my things to do just that. I grabbed my backpack and put in a few granola bars and 2 water bottles before zipping up the bag and hopping out the kitchen window. Steps and front doors were overrated anyways. On the way to my training ground I passed by the village's library, and when I looked I didn't see anything moving inside, so I decided to read a book in the well-known building for the first time in my life. I wasn't allowed into the place during the day, so I might as well so it now. I thought to myself as I circled the building. I stopped when I saw a window near the roof, just big enough for me to be able to squeeze through, and so I climbed up the side of the building and opened the window, throwing in my backpack first before I climbed in myself. After wriggling through the window frame I made sure to attach my feet to the wall so I didn't fall, not wanting to make noise and thus attract attention. When I finally reached the floor I felt around for my backpack and, when I felt it, I grabbed a strap and threw it over my shoulder. I then headed to the front desk where I found a small handheld lantern, and after turning the knob on the side a faded yellow glow came off of the small light bulb in the middle, and I started looking through the children's section. I didn't find anything of interest, so I quickly moved on to the adult section. I picked up a few books on herbs and natural healers in the land of fire, a book called Ika Ika Paradise that I'd heard of around Konoha, and it wasn't till I reached the shelf did I find another book I took interest in. It was a book on the Uzumaki clan, and I wouldn't have found it interesting if it weren't for the fact that my own last name was Uzumaki. I quickly took it off the shelf before going over to one of the few tables with a chair pulled up to it, setting my books on the surface before climbing onto the chair. I read through the herb and natural healer books, which were only 2, and made note of whatever I deemed important with my notepad before setting the 2 books aside, reaching for Ika Ika Paradise. 2 seconds of reading and I threw the book somewhere to my left, my face a flaming red. Shaking the blush away, I started on the book titled History of the Uzumaki Clan, and I couldn't help myself. I took note of whatever I found interesting, which turned out to be nearly everything in the book. After that I put all the books back where I'd found them, including the Ika Ika book, even though I was reluctant to even touch the thing, and after that I went over to the academy student area. I didn't find anything all that important besides the book of Jutsu, which I grabbed and took with me back to the table I'd been sitting at, eager to read it. The 3 main jutsu in the book were the Kawarimi, Bunshin Jutsu, and the Henge. There were other jutsus in the book as well, but they weren't required for passing the academy, even though they should as they were actually useful sounding. One was called the Bubble Wrap Jutsu, and it allowed the caster to walk silently on any surface. Another, called Sandstorm, allowed all dust from your surroundings to fly up in a flurry to blind the opponent, getting into their eyes so they couldn't see, and I knew that would be good against those with a dojutsu such as the Hyuga or Uchiha, and it was considered acceptable in taijutsu battles. There was one more, called the Water Breather Jutsu, which put chakra around and in the lungs, protecting the lungs from water getting into them as well as turning chakra into air inside the lungs so that you could be underwater as long as you had chakra. I could test everyone besides the water breather jutsu, as there weren't any dyes of water around me, so I decided to start trying to learn the kawirimi. I threw a book about 5 feet away and went through the proper hand signs, and I met the book halfway, the hardcover slamming into my forehead, the surprising force sending me to the floor. Shaking my head, I stood up and threw the book away again, doing the exercise till I'd mastered it. My last use of the jutsu was to make sure I mastered it, so I threw the book clear across the library and kawirimi'd to it perfectly, landing right in front of the glass front door. Smiling wasn't something I did often, it was something I did when I mastered something, and this was one of those times. Sudden footsteps alerted me that someone was going to be walking by the library, so I picked up the book and threw it to where I had been standing not too long ago and kawirimi'd to it again, just in time to avoid being seen by a drunken male stumbling by the front door holding a sake bottle even though he looked like he'd had one too many already. When the man passed by I picked up the jutsu book and looked through the jutsus again, deciding to do the henge next. After reading what the hand signs were I went up to the glass door so I could see my reflection and started doing the jutsu over and over. The first attempt was wavy and was easily dispelled by my simply blinking. It took me around 30 minutes, but by the time I'd mastered the technique I could have been a believable Irika-sensei. I went to the book and chose another jutsu, the bunshin jutsu, and the first time I tried it, it utterly failed. Every time I tried the technique I failed at it miserably and, even after half an hour, I still hadn't been able to make a single solid clone. With a groan of frustration I quit trying to master the horribly annoying jutsu in favor of trying another one. I couldn't do the water breather one, so that left me with sandstorm. Going through the hand signs, I tried summoning all the dust bunnies, but since this was a library, there were more than I'd thought, so the jutsu failed. I kept trying again and again till I got it around 45 minutes later, and by that time I had on a layer of dust and dirt, and I was repeatedly sneezing. When I finally stopped sneezing I moved over to the door that said Genins only and tried pushing it open. It didn't budge in the slightest, so I kept trying to open it, but it just wouldn't budge. Getting a more than just a little irritated I punched the door with chakra, and a blue bar appeared beside the door. Raising an eyebrow, I punched it again, this time without chakra. The bar didn't fill up any further, so I placed my palm on the door and pumped chakra into it, and the bar started filling up. When the bar was full the door swung open, and I walked inside and started looking around. None of them interested me, so I moved on to the Chunin section. Its door was the same, only I had to use more chakra, and this room was a bit more interesting. It had more techniques that were of higher caliber obviously, and to the left of the door was a box that said elemental paper on it, so I lifted the lid to find instructions on the back of the lid. Basically, I had to channel my chakra into it and it would tell me what chakra nature or chakra natures I had. Simple enough. I took a piece of paper and channeled some chakra to my fingertips and into the paper, watching as a slice of it turned milky white and hardened, another piece got soaked, another crumbled, another turned into wood and the last piece got sliced up into extremely small pieces. Reading the definitions, I found out that if it crumbled I had earth, if it got wet I had water, and if it got sliced up I had wind. I figured wood meant I had wood release, something only the first Hokage had had, and I assumed the white hard stuff was bone. Shrugging, I started looking for jutsu for my elements. I found 2 wind jutsu and 3 water jutsu that interested me, as well as a fire jutsu, so I took those scrolls from the shelf to read through them, and if they still interested me I'd write down the needed information to do the techniques for when I left this place. Out of the scrolls I picked I only wrote about 2 water jutsu, the 2 wind techniques and the fire jutsu, and I put them all back where I'd found them when I was finished. Putting my notebook and pen back into my pocket as I left the room, I shut the door behind me and went to the Jonin door. When I tried opening it, I almost ran out of chakra trying to do so, but I just managed to do it. Inside was a jutsu heaven. I was reading through the jutsu and figuring out which ones I'd benefit from and which ones I'd be able to use. I wrote down ones I might want to learn later, or ones I could learn now, and when I did I wrote them down in my notebook. The one I was most curious and hopeful about was the Kagebunshin Jutsu, which allowed the user to make a solid clone, and that technique could very well help me with the academy. I started reading the books, having trouble here and there with certain words that I didn't know, but I figured out most of them. After that I put the reading material away and walked out of the Jonin section and up to the front desk. I turned the lamp off and placed it onto the desk before leaving the way I'd come. I decided to go home and catch a few AA so my chakra could replenish. Tomorrow was Tuesday, which meant another boring day at the academy, and I'd rather not be tired as fuck when I go. It was exam day at the academy today, and I have to say every kid but me was at the least slightly anticipating the exam, whereas I was sitting in the back with my notepad and pen, taking notes. Time, 8:47 a.m. Place, Academy. Surroundings, Sakura and Ino are fighting over the seat next to Sasuke again, even though both are open. Shikamaru is asleep at his desk again, Shoji is munching on his seemingly endless supply of chips, every girl in the class are looking and whispering about Sasuke, though I still can't figure out why, and Hinata is still staring at me weirdly. Shine is still restricting his chatting to his insect friends, and the Inuzuka is talking with his pup who was sitting on his head, even though that was extremely weird. Irika-sensei walked in with a stack of papers at that moment and started handing them out, so I put my notebook and pen into my pocket before waiting for my own sheet of paper to come to me. As usual, my paper had a genjutsu to make the questions different from everyone else's, and I dispelled it like I always did before starting on the test, finishing it before everyone, like always, and I stood up to hand it to Irika-sensei before anyone else could, like always, since I didn't see the point in sitting around, and I handed in my paper before returning to my seat to wait for the next part of the exam to start. The next part of the exam was the Bokujutsu portion, in which we had to throw komasi and shrikes at the target. As the teachers handed out the weapons, I noticed that my komasi and shrunken were poorly made, which could be a major factor in how well I did, and I guess Mizuki-sensei knew this as well, as he was smirking when he made me the poorly made weapons. As each child got their turn to throw, I waited till I was called on, and like always we did it alphabetically, so I was last. When I stepped forward for my turn, I dropped the poor komasi and shrunken to the ground and instead made kunai and shuriken from my bones, freaking out many of my fellow students as I used them to hit the targets, all of them hitting the bullseye. The next portion was a taijutsu exam, and it was girls versus girls and boys versus boys up until there was a single champion for each gender, and those two had to fight as well for the victor to be named. Choji and Shikamaru was the first match, but Shikamaru quit after it became clear Choji wasn't going to fight him. Shino and Kiba fought, and Kiba lost because of his chakra being drained. The next few matches were going to be fought by civilian-born kids, so I turned my attention to the girls' fights. Sakura and Ino had apparently been the first fight, and Ino had apparently been the victor of that match. After that, Ino went on to beat some civilian-born girls while Hinata took on the rest of them. Soon enough, Ino and Hinata were preparing to fight each other, and that's when I was called up. Apparently Sasuke had been able to beat Choji and Shino, and so now it was my turn to fight Mr. Emo. When I stepped out onto the chalked-in fighting space, I didn't say a word, choosing instead to wait for the match to start. Since my bones were allowed in taijutsu matches, I had my bones come out of my skin to cover them like a porcupine with his quills, waiting for Irika-sensei to start the match. When I heard him yell, "Hajime!" I waited for Sasuke to come to me, and that he did. He came running at me as fast as he could, but I guess I'm just faster than he is, as, when I got close enough, I turned to my side and did a hook kick, swiping at his neck with my foot. He'd stopped and leaned back slightly, but four bones came out of my feet and surrounded his head, holding him to my shoe. I stayed in my position till Irika-sensei called the match, which is when I allowed my bones to recede back into myself, allowing Sasuke to jump back and exit the arena in an angry huff. Hince walked into the arena just then, looking shy and meek, unlike how she was in her previous battles, which caused a frown to mark my features as I wondered why she was suddenly so shy. When Irika-sensei started the match and she didn't move towards me, my frown deepened. "Why do you not fight me?" I ask, and she doesn't answer, choosing instead to push her fingers together and look at the ground while red overcame her features. "Are you possibly coming down with an illness? Why is your face so red all of a sudden?" I ask, not understanding what was going on with the girl in front of me, and I saw her become as red as a tomato before answering in a low tone. I am fine. I knew that was a lie. "If you are not sick, then prove it by fighting me. I will not attack you till you are ready. I want to see what you can do, Hinata Hyuga. Impress me." A fire seemed to come alive in her eyes at my last words as she yelled out, "Byakugan," and fell into the standard Hyuga stance. Smirking at the real fight I was about to receive, I took my shirt and pants off, leaving me in my shorts that I had on underneath, and I allowed my bone to come out and cover my forearms, shins, and heart. I then rushed at her, but she was ready and leapt forward when I was within her range, trying to strike me with her juke strikes, but I batted them away with my bone and fell into a crouch, my leg flying out as I swing and did a 360, facing Hinata just as she fell to the ground from her legs being swept out from underneath her. With a grin, I put my hand near her neck but didn't grip it as a sign of dominance, and, when the proctor called the match in my favor, I held my hand out to the girl and pulled her up. I guess now that she was out of the heat of battle, her sickness took over her again. As she dropped my hand, her face became the color of crimson, and she fainted backwards, though I grabbed her just in time and laid her onto the ground, not knowing what else to do. I then walked away back to my clothes, actually sweating slightly, the feeling of battle making me feel 10 times lighter. I guess I really was one to enjoy a good battle or spar. I'd have to do that with the Hyuga again. When I put my pants on, I looked at my shirt and decided to forego putting it on, walking back to class with the others shirtless as Mizuki-sensei took Hinata to the hospital part of the academy. When we got back into the classroom, everyone was called upon one at a time to go through the last part of the exam, the jutsu portion. As always, I was the last one called upon, and when I entered the room I waited for Irika-sensei to sit down and tell me what to do. "Okay, Naruto. I need you to do the henge for me." I transformed into Irika and held the image for a few seconds before dispelling it. "Okay. Now I need you to do a kawarimi." I decided to kawarimi with Irika-sensei, so by the time he realized he was facing a wall and turned around, I was leaning back in his chair with my feet on his desk, my face showing how much I didn't care. Before Irika-sensei could start yelling about lack of respect for other people's things, I kawarimi-ed with him again and watched in amusement as he fell back in his chair that he wasn't prepared to be in. Sitting down again, he glared at me before picking up his clipboard. "Okay, Naruto, I need you to do the Bunshin Jutsu now." This was the problem I'd been slightly worried about. "I can't." Irika looked at me as if I'd slapped him. "What do you mean you won't do it, Naruto?" I could tell by his tone of voice he was getting angry, and I shook my head. "I said I can't do it, Irika-sensei. I have never been able to do the standard Bunshin Jutsu, nor will I ever be able to do it. Could I possibly do a different type of Bunsim?" I was growing bored with this, and if I had to retake the last year of the academy over and over just because I had too much chakra to perform a weak and useless technique, then I'd just quit before flipping my teachers the bird. "Sorry, Naruto, but you have to do a standard Bunshin, and since you have to be able to do all 3 jutsu, I can't pass you." "Sorry." I left the room angry at all the time I'd wasted being in the academy when I could have just been stealing techniques from the library or other people, and so I didn't even notice I was being followed till I was sitting on a random civilian's balcony, and Mizuki-sensei landed next to me. "Hey Naruto. I just wanted to apologize about your not graduating. I should have convinced Irika to let you do your other type of Bunshin." The silver-haired man was being really nice to me, and I didn't understand why, as he usually was glaring at me. "Say, I know of this secret exam, it's another way to become a genin. Do you want to try it?" I didn't trust this man, but whatever he was doing could greatly benefit me, so I went along with it. "Sure. What is it?" I asked, curious but not letting it show, like always. "Well, first you have to." That night, when I entered the Hokage Tower, I expected to immediately be swarmed by ANBU, but no one seemed to even know or sense that I was here, and so I just went to the Hokage's office and walked up to the cabinet that sat against the wall and opened it, revealing the large scroll Mizuki wanted me to get. It had Forbidden Scroll written in black ink on the front, and I assume Mizuki thought I was too stupid to realize that, but all I really wanted from this experience was the jutsu in the scroll, so I put the strap over my shoulder and hopped out the window just as I heard someone coming. I went to the spot Mizuki had specified in the woods and unrolled the large scroll completely and started writing down all the jutsu onto my notepad so that I could have the notes if someone found me before I could learn all the jutsu. After writing the jutsu, I saw the first jutsu was the Kage Bunshin Jutsu, and since I already knew it, I just read the notes on the bottom, and I found out that whatever they learned transferred back to the user, and I stored the information for later as I continued, looking at the next jutsu. Its use was based off of Kage Bunshin, as it made the clones explode, so I created one clone at a time as I tried mastering the technique. It took me about 20 minutes, but since I didn't have to take any breaks to gather more chakra from creating so many clones like I'd read on the scroll most people had to do, I was good. I was reading about a jutsu called Summoning, Impure World Reincarnation, when Irika-sensei appeared from nowhere, looking extremely angry. "Why did you take the scroll, Naruto?" I decided to answer his question simply. "Mizuki?" He looked shocked at the new information, and apparently Mizuki found it amusing to drop in just then. "Hello, Irika. Naruto, give me the scroll, you did a great job on your exam." The amused smirk on Mitsuki's face was truly making me sick. What exam, Mizuki? All that answered Irika's question was a hearty laugh. I don't have any friends, no one had ever wanted to be my friend or shown any interest in getting to know me, so I'd never tried such things, but the fact that Mizuki had purposefully thrown away a friend like they were trash was ticking me off, even though I didn't care all that much about Irika-sensei. Thinking over how to deal with the overconfident male in front of me, I just decided to spam clones, not wanting to waste much breath on this lowlife in front of me, so my hands flew into a cross sign and I thought the jutsu name, and thus around 200 Kage Bunshin appeared and started pummeling Mizuki, much to Irika's blatant shock. When Mizuki had been thoroughly beaten up, I dispelled all of my clones sans 3 and had 2 carry Mizuki, 1 carry the scroll, and I myself walked alongside the still obviously shocked Irika-sensei. Naruto, stop. I want to give you something. I turned and looked at Irika-sensei in confusing when a sudden weight was put onto my forehead. I saw that Irika-sensei didn't have his Hitaiate was gone, and I thusly connected the dots. I passed? I asked, just to make sure. When Irika nodded, I felt a warm feeling go through me when the man smiled at me, but I couldn't place what it was, and so we walked all the way back to the Hokage's tower in silence. My eye twitched in aggravation, it actually twitched. I let a growl escape my throat as I stalked forward, sending chakra into my ears to have better hearing, trying to listen for the hellspawn that was my team's mission. When I heard the soft sound of paws hitting grass and leaves, a grin of bloodlust overcame my face as I spun around to face that direction, my bones shooting out of my arm to form a full-on cage around the cat my team had trouble getting till they allowed me to take over once they'd gotten hungry. My new sensei was Kakashi Hatake and my 2 teammates were Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno, and all 3 got on my nerves with their ever-obvious flaws. Kakashi didn't know when to get serious and teach us something useful, plus he was always late, a clear sign he didn't respect us nor did he care about us. Sasuke had his head stuck up his arse, so whenever he wasn't being overly cocky he was brooding over nothing with his hands clasped in front of his mouth. Sakura left me alone in the academy, and believe me, she still leaves me alone, but she still indirectly annoys me whenever she fawns over Sasuke, yells, more like screeches, over Sasuke, or claimed that she and Sasuke were destined to be and that she'd be Mrs. Uchiha, and she seemed to have the verbal tic Shinara whenever she's excited about something, mainly Sasuke. Kakashi wasn't teaching me anything. Sasuke refused to believe I'd beaten him during our taijutsu match back at the academy fairly, and, while she didn't say it out loud, Sakura agreed with him on anything and everything, so obviously my fair win against Sasuke got me some hate from the fangirls. I decided to leave the cat in my bone cage with a Kage Bunshin as its guard as I left back to training ground 7, where I knew I'd find my team. Sure enough, they were there, sitting down with sandwiches, relaxing on the grass, and I took one look at them, shrugged, and grabbed one of the free water bottles before moving away a little so that I wouldn't hit them while I trained. I took off my shirt and pants so I wouldn't rip them and started going through my normal training routine, completely oblivious to the stares I was getting from my team until I'd finished, only to look up and see Kakashi and Sasuke looking away as if they'd learned something important and new, and Sakura gazing at me with a large blush on her face as she stared at me. Chalking her blush off as the day's heat affecting her, I put my pants back on but left my shirt off, deciding it to be far too hot for it. I have the cat captured, so whenever you're ready we can go get the reward for the mission. Kakashi clapped his hands and stood up, Sasuke and Sakura standing up with him, but I didn't as I was already standing. Let's go then, Naruto. I could tell Kakashi's happy tone was fake, like the rest of the man's feelings that he shows us most of the time, so I just shrugged and started walking to the cat and my guard clone, my team following close behind. When we arrived, my clone saluted me before dispelling, and I picked up the cage and started walking to the Hokage's office to give the cat back to its abusive owner. Hokage's office. Watching as the cat got smothered, I didn't even feel the tiniest bit sorry. I even gave the woman the bone cage to keep the cat in whenever she left it so it couldn't get away so easily again, and she thanked me before leaving, her cat trying to kill itself in her owner's neck rolls. When the woman and her cat started leaving, the Hokage started listing various other D-rank missions, and there wasn't any way I was going to do any more of those crappy missions, and so I voiced my opinion. May we have a C-rank, Hokage-sama? This seemed to shut the old man up, and I could tell everyone in the room was shocked, even though I couldn't understand why. Naruto, your team isn't ready for a C rank yet. For every level of ninja they get a certain level mission. Benin do D ranks and, sometimes, C ranks if they are a low level of difficulty. Chunin get. I cut him off there. However, when a genin team hits the amount of required D ranks they can apply for a C rank. I do remember the important things you taught us in class, Irika-sensei, and I do remember the fact that if you complete 20 D ranks you are qualified enough to apply for a C rank. The fact that we have the famous Kakashi Hatake as our sensei should clear up the rest of your unease, unless you think him too incompetent to keep us all safe, correct? I knew then that I'd won, and so the Hokage handed us a C-rank mission scroll and, just as we were about to leave, a drunken man appeared, leaning against the doorframe obviously drunk, the obvious clue to even further by the over half-empty sake bottle in the man's hand. These are the ninja who are supposed to protect me? They're just a bunch of kids. Especially the short one, he looks like a China doll. When I realized he was talking about me, my eye twitched again for the second time that day as a large and sharp bone sword came out of my flesh, and I left it still attached on myself to add to the threat. If you don't shut up and show me respect, I'll turn you into a human shish kebab. I didn't do anything else except point the bone sword at the old man and grin as evilly as I could when he seemed to wilt, his grip on his sake bottle hardening. Thank you for the mission, Hokage-sama, I shall take my leave. With that, I bowed to the Hokage as my home went back into my arm before exiting through the window, ignoring the shouts of indignation from Irika as I did so. That night. Just as I was about to go to sleep, something I was trying to do at night again, I heard a knock on my door and went to it in my sweatpants and my green frog tie cap, something I'd gotten years ago but hadn't started wearing till recently, and found a note tapped to my front door. Dear Naruto, meet us at Konoha's front gate tomorrow at 7 a.m. See ya. Kakashi. After reading the note, I crumbled it up and threw it away in the trash as I made my way back to my bed, my teeth already brushed and I'd already taken my shower, so I was good to go. As I climbed into bed, I looked up at the sky as I fell asleep, the bright stars calming me. At 6 a.m. the next morning. When I woke up, I just laid there for a few minutes to gather my thoughts and wake up before I got out of bed, drinking some water from the cup on my nightstand to get me going. After my drink, I summoned 4 kage bunshin, 2 to cook my breakfast and 2 to prepare my bag and set out my clothes for today. Once they were summoned, I went to the shower to get washed off. I cleaned my hair with my apple cider vinegar and baking soda mix with some lavender essential oil mixed in, and, after that, I washed off and got out of the shower to brush my teeth and hair. After toweling off, I moved to my bedroom to get the clothes on that had been set onto the bed with my backpack beside it, and, after putting on my outfit, I turned to check out my outfit. I decided to go shirtless this mission, so, without my skin-tight, long-sleeved black shirt on, I just wore my black ANBU pants, black ninja sandals and my blue Hitai 8 went around my forehead, as having it around my neck turned out to be very annoying. With that done, I threw one of the backpack straps over my shoulder and went into the kitchen where my pancakes and glass of milk were sitting. After eating, I looked at the clock and read the time, 6:33, and made another clone to wash my dishes as I jumped out the window, walking to the front gate of Konoha. It took me about 15 minutes, but by the time I reached the gate, I was still the only person there. After a minute or two, Sasuke appeared, and not long after, Sakura came. The last 2 people to arrive were Kakashi and our client, unsurprisingly, but the surprising thing was that the 2 were on time. After Kakashi talked with the gate guards a bit, we left the village, and I was actually excited. This was going to be the first time I'd ever left Konoha, so I was gonna make it last. As soon as Konoha was out of sight, I went to the trees to tree hop at a slow pace, enjoying the air hitting my face and cooling me down. Every now and then I had to stop for the rest of my team, as they were traveling at a civilian's pace for some reason, but nothing exciting happened till I saw a puddle on the road. Since it hasn't rained in days, I knew it was a poorly thought out genjutsu, so, when my team had passed over, I threw a stink bomb pellet into the puddle, and thus 2 wild ninja appeared. I decided to wait and see who their target was, and, after they took down Kakashi, they headed straight for the bridge builder. Having had enough, I trapped idiot number 1 in a cage of bones and jumped down on the idiot number 2, killing him with a bone dagger that came from my knuckle as I punched him in the head. Apparently idiot number 1 and idiot number 1 had been brothers, and so idiot number 1 was currently trying to get out of his cage to try and kill me. Laughable. I've never laughed though, so I highly doubt I'm gonna start now. After Kakashi interrogated the only living brother, he looked angry and called everyone to him. Seems like you lied to us, Tazuna. Why would a C-rank mission be dealing with an A-ranked missing nin by the name of Zabuza Momochi? Oh right, they don't. You should have asked for a B or A-ranked qualified mission. Now you've put my team in danger because you've lied. Care to explain? As the man spilled his backstory, I couldn't help but not care in the slightest. All I really cared about on this mission was fighting something and staying out of Konoha a bit longer. Both reasons were because Konoha is boring and I have nothing to do there. When Kakashi asked us if we wanted to continue with the mission, I immediately answered yes, Sasuke doing the same, and thus Sakura agreed as well, even though I could tell she was scared. A day or two later we were walking when a mist started rolling in. I thought nothing of it, but Kakashi seemed to tense, so I decided to be on my guard as well. When I heard rustling in the bushes to my left, I threw a bone kunai at it, and out hopped a white bunny. Sakura started yelling at me about almost hurting an innocent bunny when I heard a faint whirring sound, so I quickly grabbed our client and pulled him to the ground, just as Kakashi did the same thing with my teammates, and thus we all hit the ground as a large sword, which I recognized as the Kubakirabocho, passed overhead, landing in a tree. I jumped up with the client and had Sasuke and Sakura form a circle around the client while Kakashi took of his Hitayate to reveal his Sharingan. Sasuke looked shocked, and Sakura looked clueless, but I'd already known why Kakashi was famous for the most part, so I was just surprised he'd revealed it so early. Ah! You honor me, Kakashi Hatake of the Sharingan. I didn't think you'd show it so early. At least me and our enemy, who I assumed was Zabuza Momochi, were on the same boat on Kakashi's big eye reveal. Who are the Gakis you have with you? You didn't take on a genin team, did you, Kakashi? Just then an even thicker mist rolls in, obscuring our vision as a voice started echoing through the mist. 8 point to strike, larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Please choose carefully, even though they're all as painful as the last. I could see Sakura and Sasuke sweating, and I could see Sasuke even grabbing a kunai to stab himself as Ki took over our senses. While I couldn't say I was used to Ki, I didn't have any reason to fear the death that was being shown to me, so I didn't let it affect me. I heard a slight shuffle behind me, and immediately, my foot struck out behind me, my bone coming out from my foot to stab Zabuza, who'd appeared behind me. My teammates turned in shock, and I watched in anger as the Zabuza turned to water and dispersed. Bone release, huh? I haven't seen that bloodline in a while. You'd make me a lot of money, kid. Zambian's voice said as it echoed, and yet again I didn't mind the Ki, even though it doubled. I had to slap Sasuke's kunai from his hands so that he wouldn't kill himself though, and Sakura looked about ready to fall to her knees, so I slapped her to get her to focus again, and after that we watched Zabuza and Kakashi battle, which ended in Kakashi flying through the air and into a close-by lake. Just as Kakashi was climbing out of the water, Zabuza put him into a water prison after creating another water clone to deal with us. Without hesitation I tell Sasuke and Sakura to stay and protect Zabuza while I stepped out onto the water, walking on the water towards Zabuza's clone. It grabbed its sword and rushed at me, and so I stopped walking and got into my fighting stance, waiting for the water clone. When he was just seconds away from me, I secretly made 2 Kage Bunshin beneath my feet as I burst forward, the creation of the Tumis masked by my running forward at high speeds with chakra. As Zabuza brought his sword down in a sideways arc, I clashed with my bone, neither forces giving in to the other. His fast slashes were met with my equally fast parries as I waited for my plan to work. When the Zabuza clone made a wider arc than necessary, I did an open palm thrust at the clone's heart, my bone shooting through my palm and into his chest, causing the clone to turn to water and fall into the lake. I turned just in time to see Zabuza pulled under the water by my 2 clones, freeing Kakashi-sensei. I let Kakashi finish the battle, and, when Zabuza was propped up against a large tree, I saw Kakashi move towards the former Sven swordsman's fallen form while taking out a kunai. Just as I started walk to Kakashi and the fallen Zabuza to back my sensei up, 2 Senbon appeared and lodged themselves into Zabuza's neck, and, not long after, a Kiri Hunter Nin appeared, though I wasn't completely sure it was actually a Hunter Nin. When I reached Kakashi, the Hunter Nin disappeared with Zabuza's body via Shunshin. That was when I knew it wasn't a true Hunter Nin, and, when Kakashi fell to the ground face first, I created 2 clones and had them carry the older man. A few hours later we arrived at Tazuna's house, my clones dragging Kakashi inside and up the stairs, into the room I was supposed to stay in with Sasuke and Kakashi until our mission was completed. I stayed down with my teammates as a woman, most likely Tazuna's daughter, went upstairs after my clones to instruct them to the room we'd be staying in, while Tazuna, Sakura, Sasuke, and I went into the kitchen to wait for supper, not knowing what else to do. The next day. After lunch, Kakashi-sensei woke up, and so I led Sasuke and Sakura into the room with him in it. Our sensei, sitting up in his bedroll with Tsunami, whose name I'd learned yesterday, was standing off to the side as a caretaker. When Kakashi instructed us to sit down, we did as we were told, and that's when he told us that Zabuza was still alive and explained the evidence of the fact. I'd already known, but obviously Sasuke and Sakura hadn't, if their reaction was anything to go by. He then got out of bed with a pair of crutches Tsunami had given him and took us outside into the woods to teach us the tree climbing exercise, which I already had mastered. When we found suitable trees, Kakashi-sensei explained the technique to the three of us and told us to do it after instructing us to take out kunai for the technique. Kakashi-sensei, I've already mastered this technique. He looked at me with his ever-bored face and said, show me then. Sighing, I walked up the tree, hung upside down on a branch for a few seconds, and then walked back down, defying gravity like a boss. Okay, Naruto. Since you've already mastered this technique, then we'll move on to the water walking technique. I shook my head as he started to move, stopping him in his tracks. I've already mastered that as well, sensei. Anything else you can teach me? He looked thoughtful for a moment before replying, try hanging off the tree with your hands, or jumping from one tree to another while doing cartwheels in midair. Things like that will help you focus and up your chakra control if you need to have it at a moment's notice. Sound good? With a nod, I went into the trees, completely ignoring the shocked look on Sakura's face and the angered one on Sasuke's. 6 days later. Waking up, I felt fatigued, but I sent chakra throughout my body quickly to relax my sore muscles before getting out of bed and heading to the kitchen, grabbing a quick breakfast from Tsunami before creating 2 Kage Bunshin to protect the house before leaving after my team, who'd left me in bed. The closer I got to the bridge, the thicker the mist around the area grew and the more uneasy I felt. When I finally arrived at the bridge, there were dead bodies everywhere, and I felt Zabuza and the fake hunter Nin's chakra close by, right by my teams, which meant a battle was going on without me. I decided to quietly approach, and I saw Sakura protecting Tazuna, Kakashi fighting Zabuza, and I saw the fake hunter Nin fighting as well. Just as I was about to help him, Sasuke disappeared in a dome of ice mirrors with the fake hunter Nin, yet I could see a few places where I could sneak in. I waited for Sasuke to look like a human porcupine before breaking a mirror with my bone, a gasp of shock coming from the fake hunter Min's mouth as I destroyed a second. After a third, I was preparing to slice up the fourth when I heard whizzing sounds and jumps out of the way, just in time to avoid the Senbon thrown by the fake hunter Nin that were aimed at my neck. I continued to destroy mirrors while simultaneously dodging the Senbon coming my way, and, when I reached the final mirror, the person hopped out of it and pushed a senior into my arm, making it numb. Thinking quickly, I had my bone completely cover my arm before I started using it like a mace, swinging it at the Nin as I spun around. Kicks and punches and swings flew at the person while he dodged gracefully. When I stopped, pretending to be tired, instead of coming at me like I thought she would, she turned around and threw a senior into Sasuke's neck, as he'd been standing on the side waiting for a time he could help. When he fell to the ground, the fake hunter Nin's voice filled the air, completely monotone. He would have been a good ninja, but I cannot fail Zabuza-sama. I am his weapon, and I cannot become useless. I didn't look at him, nor did I acknowledge him, all I did was stare at Sasuke's fallen form. Is this the first time you've seen death? I first saw death when I was 7, and I first showed my mother my Ice Kekai Genkai. My father realized that it was my mother had the Kekai Genkai as well, and killed her for being different before attempting to do the same with me. I cut her off from going further, anger seeping from my every pore. While I didn't care much for Sasuke, he was innocent, something I wish I could have, and to kill an innocent is despicable. How can you just stand there, like you didn't just do something completely horrible? The Nin turned to face me and we locked eyes, and she gasped as I was surrounded by a warm feeling, and I was completely fine. I felt amazing in fact, when all of a sudden a sharp pain spiked in my eyes and I fell into a fetal position. The pain only lasted a few seconds, but when I looked the fake hunter Nin, my vision was blurred with tears. Looking at the Nin, I felt my conscience float to the back of my mind as another part of me took over. This part felt more malicious, more heated. I let it whack the Nin around with a technique called Shinra Tensei and Bansho Tenin, and the Nin was sent flying all over the place like a ragdoll. Too bad about that 5-second delay though. I picked up the Nin with gravity to throw around again when the mask fell. It revealed the face of the boy I'd met in the woods, and I felt disappointment. He had been talking so much about friendship, and there he goes stabbing my back and killing my teammate. Anger replaced disappointment, and I took back over the control of my body and Bansho Tenin led the girl to me. When she flew right into my hand, I started squeezing her neck, ignoring her feeble attempts. The boy was looking at me in utter fear, wouldn't even look me in the eyes even. You betrayed my trust, and this is your punishment. And with that, I destroyed the neck in my grasp, and slowly the light faded from the boy's eyes. Haku! I heard from behind me, and I turned to see that it was Zabuza who'd said that. Said man fell onto his knees, and I couldn't have cared less. Snowflakes started falling just as we heard slow clapping. Sakura and Tazuna had left to find Sasuke's body, and Zabuza was too busy dealing with grief to care about anything else, so only Kakashi-sensei and I looked over at the short, ugly little man that walked onto the bridge in an expensive business suit and a cane in one hand, around 200 thugs behind him. Demon of the Mist? Ha! More like bitch boy of the mist. You're pathetic, Zabuza, and that's why I never planned on paying you anyways. Gato then started kicking Haku's dead body, and Zabuza completely lost it. His arms weren't working, so he asked Kakashi to put a kunai in his mouth. Kunai in place, Zabuza charged at his enemy, and Gato quickly retreated into the horde of thugs. They all slashed and swung at the demon, but he had a one-track mind, and he was focused on getting to and killing Gato, even if it were to be the last thing he'd ever do. When he finally reached Gato, he stabbed the short man before shoving him off the bridge before it all seemed to catch up to him. Zabuza stumbled over to Haku and collapsed by his side, not caring to move anymore. Hey! You just took our meal ticket. Let's get them! Said a random thug, and they all started charging and would have tried killing us, had it not been for an arrow landing in front of them. We all looked and saw all of Nami no Kuni standing there, battle-ready with makeshift weapons. You'll have to go through us. The thugs looked at the number of civilians and were about to attack when I summoned around 100 Kage Bunshin, and Kakashi created 10. Any last words? I looked them all in the eye, and what they saw apparently scared them, as they all turned and ran, my clones rushing after them to make sure they left. Sasuke! I heard Sakura cry from behind me, and I looked and saw her hugging our teammate, who seemed to be hugging her back. I looked up and saw that a flurry was still going on, and I felt relief in its chill. When Kakashi started ushering us to Tazuna's house, I kept my head down, because I didn't want anyone to see my eyes like they were now, and I could tell they were still different because my vision was weird. When we arrived at Tazuna's, I walked right upstairs and straight to the bathroom, ignoring the questions thrown at my back. When I'd shut and locked the door, I lifted my head, and my vision was focused on my now purple eyes with black rings. They looked extremely different from my normal blue eyes. I tried focusing on my eyes, and, when I did, I realized that the eyes were slightly draining my chakra just from being activated. I stopped the chakra flow, and my eyes turned back to normal. I sent chakra to my eyes, and they became purple again. I cut it off, blue. Interesting, it's good that I can at least deactivate them, whatever this is. I heard Kakashi talk about burying all the dead, and putting Zabuza and Haku's grave up on a hill that overlooks all of Nami, and so I exited the bathroom to help my team bury the dead. A few hours later. The burials were over, all except 2. I was helping Kakashi carry Zabuza's body and sort up the hill while Sakura and Sasuke were carrying Haku's, and when we put Zabuza's body in his grave coffinless, Kakashi put the gravestone into the ground before covering the grave with dirt, leaving the sword to the side. By that time Sasuke and Sakura had finally made it up the hill, Sakura complaining about sweating already, and they tossed Haku into his grave, and I checked, it was surprisingly a he. With that done, Kakashi covered the grave as well before putting up the gravestone. With that done, he shoved the Kubakiri Bocho into the ground and they all left, not caring that they left me behind. I didn't care about them either, nor did I care about their departure, for as soon as they left I took the Kubakiri Bocho from the dirt and sealed it into a seal. I'd had a clone right on my right hand. It was a weapon storage seal, and it could only hold one thing, and I think that this is definitely worthy of holding that spot. After that I left, but not before turning my Konoha headband to the side, reminiscent of Zabuza's in respect of his power and strength, and with that I left. 3 days later. I'm shocked. I've never been shocked before. This is such an odd and abnormal feeling from my usual certainty of most things. The people of Nami look at me as if I'm a hero. They built a statue of me and me alone by their bridge. Hell, they even named said bridge the Great Naruto Bridge after me. I'd never felt so humbled. Usually people outright hated me, or were completely indifferent, yet these people showed love and devotion towards me, as if I'd saved them from hell, which I didn't do. They should be building statues of Zabuza, or Kakashi, but no, they're honoring, thanking, and even slightly worshipping me. When I left with my team, the whole town dropped what they were doing to see me off, and I'd never seen so many people sad to see me go, and it made me happy. I actually smiled. It was a smile that seemed to take over my face entirely, and I saw most of the village woman squeal or swoon, and my team looked at me weird. What? I asked, my face going blank again. I've never seen you smile, Naruto. Kakashi said, and he looked even more shocked when he looked behind me, and I didn't know what made him look shocked, but I heard a thud behind me, and I had an inkling that one of the villagers fainted just then. Must be because it's really hot today. I dismissed with a shrug. Sakura was blushing ever so slightly, and Sasuke had lost interest by now, so we just continued on. 3 days later. My eye was twitching, again. My team decided it best to travel at civilian speed because they're complete and utter morons. Before you go judging me, why don't you try dealing with a sarcastic, porn-reading sensei who doesn't care whether your ears are bleeding, a fangirl that is forever jumping on your other teammate, or just screeching in both his ear and yours, with said male teammate not having enough balls to tell her to shut the fuck up. I swear, the next time she screeches I'll. Sasuke. I'm trying to tell you something. With no remorse, I bitch slapped her into a tree, knocking her unconscious. Sasuke nodded thanks in my direction, and I nodded back before summoning a clone to carry Sakura. Can we start tree hopping, Kakashi? I have a clone carrying Sakura, and we all should be able to do it. Also, if you don't agree, I'm burning your Ika paradise. I said, waving his book around. He panicked when he realized that I had his most prized possession, and immediately grabbed Sasuke and started tree jumping. With a smirk I took to the trees as well, my clone right behind me. Within minutes Konoha was in our view, and I sighed in relief. When we reached the gates Kakashi put Sasuke down and held out his hand, expecting my book. Without a care in the world I handed him the book and started walking away, casually throwing over my shoulder, I wouldn't have burned that book anyways. That's my favorite one in the series, and with that, I left the scene, leaving my clone to take Sakura home. 3 weeks later. Rolling out of bed in the morning is an art. It shows your determination to start the day, yet I had no such determination this morning. I'd been training till around 2 o'clock last night, and I went to bed around 3 a.m. after my shower and the like, so I was doubly tired. Lazily shutting my curtains completely, I collapsed right back onto my bed, snoring softly again. A few hours later. When I finally rolled myself out of bed I stumbled everywhere. I stumbled getting my clothes on, almost ripped my pants doing so. I stumbled into the bathroom to brush my teeth and take a shower, and when I was underneath the shower's water, I realized, in that very moment, that I'd fucked up. Looking down, I realized that I had my pants and underwear on, and with a shake of my head I'd completely woken up, and I took the clothes off before washing off. When I stepped out of the shower I toweled off and went into my room to grab a pair of pants. Deciding to go commando today, I just put on my black ANBU pants and gray ninja sandals and left my house through the window, my headband on my forehead facing the side. When my feet touched the concrete of Konoha's streets I just decided to walk along, not knowing what else to do nor having any particular destination in mind. The village is most likely quiet, sans some civilians chatting here and there. Thus I could hear 6 little feet following me. Looking around, I see a cardboard, square box. With a sigh, I kick the box off of my 3 followers, Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon. You really are a great rival to have seen through my disguise. He yells exuberantly, and I just shake my head. I don't know who put the bullcrap into his brain that I wanted to be Hokage, but ever since I'd met him he said that I'm his rival. I just turn right back around and ignore him, not caring as he keeps up his chattering behind me. Finally, after 5 minutes, I summon a clone to teach him and his little friends a jutsu I created that casts a genjutsu over the user that makes them look like an older, female version of them. Unless you're a girl then you turn into an older you, and of course female you is naked. Turning a corner, a person in a catsuit ran into me, and when they tried picking me up I mentally thanked myself for not having a shirt on, because as soon as the man dared to touch me I made my bones stick out, cut up his hands badly. "Don't touch me, dipshit," I said in a monotone voice, and the man started yelling some more about teaching me to respect my betters. When he took out a puppet I threw my hand to the side, and out of my palm came out a bone sword the size of my arm. "If you don't shut up with your useless racket I'll shove this sword up your ass till it comes out your mouth, am I understood?" The makeup-wearing male scoffed. "Yeah, right." I cut him of there when I shunned Shined behind him, my bone sword pointed right at his butt. "What was that?" And I chose my words carefully. If I were you, it isn't smart to anger the man with the sword. The ninja gulped, moved over to his sister, nodding his head fast. The girl was blushing while she looked at me, and I chalked it up as the heat getting to her. Now that you've wasted enough of my time, I'll take my leave. I was about to leave, maybe buy a bottle of water and a granola bar, when I was cut off by a swish of sand and a red head that I'd sensed in the trees appearing in my face. Gee, Gara. The blonde girl stuttered, and Gara didn't acknowledge her at all, just stared at me. What is your name? He asked me, and I raised an eyebrow. Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. He grinned a bloodthirsty grin. Mother wants your blood. We will fight, and I will kill you. Temari, Kankuro, you're both a disgrace to our village. We're leaving. And with that, they walked off with that Gara person in the lead. Shrugging off the weird encounter, I thanked Kakashi mentally for calling off team training for today, because now I could relax. As I walked around Konoha, I noticed people from different villages, or to be more accurate, ninja from different villages, but I knew that if I'd noticed it, the Jonin would have as well, and, since the ninja from other villages hadn't been escorted from the village, that meant that they were allowed in for some reason, so who was I to freak over it? The day was calm, I didn't train and I just walked around, enjoying the day and not doing anything too important. After taking my shower and brushing my teeth and hair, I went to bed, relaxed and not tired like how I normally go to bed. The next day, training ground 7. I got to the training ground around 4 minutes before Kakashi did, and, while I did get yelled at for it, I did get extra sleep, so that's always good. The team meeting was short, all Kakashi did was hand us permission slips for the Chunin exams, which explains why there had been ninja from other villages in Konoha, and told us to sign them if we want Ed to. After Sasuke and I forced Sakura into signing hers, we signed ours before going our own ways, me to my personal training ground and Sasuke to wherever Sasuke likes to be emo, with Sakura right behind him like a lost puppy. When I got to my training ground, I took out Kubikiribocho and made a bone blade for my left hand before going through katas, my aim to get used to the large blade that I'd be trying to use more often. Around midday, I sent a clone to get me lunch, and it brought me back a water bottle and a bowl of ramen from the Ichiraku ramen stand, a popular stand in Konoha that I'd never been to. After gulping down half of the contents of my water bottle, I took a small bite of ramen, and immediately gulped down the rest in 2 seconds flat. Licking my lips, I sent my clone to buy more of the heaven in a bowl while I trained, and when it came back with 10 bowls, I ate them all before going through my stretches again, not wanting to do rough training in fear of throwing up the great food I'd just eaten. By nighttime I was tired, and I had my clone go buy me 20 more bowls of ramen for my supper. As I walked back home, Kubikiribocho back in its seal and my bone sword laying in the stack of them I had at my training ground, since I never bothered reusing them. Maybe I could break one in half and give them to Sakura and train her on how to use them so she'd be somewhat useful. I'd definitely be doing that later. When I got home, the bowls were already stacked on my table, and so I ate them before throwing the bowls away. My next stop was the shower, and I slowly scrubbed off the dirt and grime that covered my body. After that, I brushed my teeth and went to bed, not bothering to put on clothes or pulled a blanket over top my body. 2 days later. Today was the day of the first part of the Chunin exams, and I met up with my team members outside the academy's front doors, and we all walked in, Sasuke to my left and Sakura to my right. Sasuke and I were not exactly friends, but more than acquaintances now, and Sakura was avoiding looking at me at all costs. I guess she can't seem to forget when she saw me naked yesterday, but it wasn't that weird, was it? I mean, it's not like I'd care if I saw her naked, she's just my teammate. Anyways, the second floor's 209 door had a genjutsu on it, making it look like it said 309 instead. Seeing as the people on this floor were all idiots, I put my hands on my teammates' shoulders and directed them to the 3rd floor, ignoring anything and everything else. We'd made it halfway to the top floor when we were interrupted by a green spandex wearing ninja our age yelled at us to stop. We all turned to face him, and when he stopped in front of us, he turned his sights to Sasuke. "You are Sasuke Uchiha, correct?" When Sasuke nodded, fire seemed to literally ignite in his eyes. "YOSH. I wish for you to fight me then." I shook my head and stepped in front of Sasuke, blocking him from the green weirdo's view. "Sorry, but there will be no sparing today. If you get matched up against him later in the Chunin exams, you can battle him, till then you'll just have to calm down. Word of advice, you and your teammates are at the wrong door. See ya." And with that, I pushed my teammates up the stairs again till we reached the door. Just as we were about to enter, Kakashi shunshined in front of us. I'm glad you all came. If even one of you hadn't signed the permission slip, none of you would have been able to enter. I saw the smirk under his mask, and I shook my head with a smirk of my own. Why do you think I forced Sasuke to force Sakura into signing her slip? I know things, sensei, I'm not stupid. With that, Kakashi shunned Shined away, and we entered the room. As soon as we stepped foot into the room, nearly everyone present thought it smart to try and intimidate us with their ki, so I created a spike the size of 2 of my arms and said, "If you don't stop being idiots, I'll make you a shish kebab." Am I understood? Apparently being stabbed through the gut was a sufficient threat, as they all stopped and looked away with glares. Having no other use for the bone, I threw it into a nearby wall and climbed onto it to relax. I didn't care for anything being said around me, at least until I heard something about ninja info cards. What the heck are those? I ask as I sit up, directing my gaze to the silver-haired Konoha genin with a stack of cards. They have information on ninja, my ninja info cards. I gave him a what the fuck face, and it was completely justifiable seeing as he had a horrible sounding British accent. What do you have on me? I ask, and he looks at me, expecting more. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. If you were actually a competent Konoha ninja, you'd have the basic knowledge on who's who. After giving him my name, he started looking through his deck before pulling out one card in particular. Here we are. Name, Naruto Uzumaki. Rank, genin. Age, 13. Parentage, orphan/unidentified parents. Missions, D ranks, 27. C ranks, 0, B ranks, 1, A ranks, 1, S ranks, 0, ninjutsu high, taijutsu high, stamina high, genjutsu below average, speed high. Wow. You've got great stats. After that I ignored everything, at least until a jonin with a group of Chunin shuined into the room at the same time. Said jonin looked angry for no apparent reason, and I couldn't help but think that that was how he was every day. Hello maggots. Today you are going to be taking the paper test portion of the exam. Go into the room to my left, your right, and take a number from either one of the Chunin on either side of the door. Find the seat that matches the number on your paper slip and sit down. You don't like where you are, then to fucking bad. I ended up wedged in between Hinata Hyuga and an IWA genin. She was glancing at me every now and then whilst blushing, and I still couldn't figure out why, so I just ignored it. The IWA nin was glaring at me, and I couldn't figure out why, and, once the tests were passed out, I sent chakra into my ears and looked at one of the hidden Chunin in the room, thinking over what I should do. Ibiki had set out rules, and I remembered one in particular and smirked. Shrugging, I stood up, went to the Chunin, grabbed his paper, and took it to my desk before copying down the notes. I could feel the glare on me, and I looked to see Ibiki standing there fuming. You said that one person could be caught cheating once. Technically, this is once. Once I'd written down all the answers, I went to Sasuke and handed him the paper to copy from as well, knowing Sakura had already written down the answers. When Sasuke was done, he went to the Chunin and gave him the paper back before sitting back down in his seat, and we exchanged smirks and nods. The hour went by quickly after that, as Sasuke and I talked silently to each other through hand signs, and, when the hour was done, our tests were taken and we had to focus on Ibiki again. He did a speech on missions we'd do if we became Chunin, and how we wouldn't be able to back out of them, before he showed us his battle scars. They looked really cool to me, and I actually slightly respected the man in front of me for them, but I could tell that most of the others were disgusted. That was when he told us about the 10th question, and after one team member of a Kiri team opted out, teams started leaving faster than I'd expected. When I saw Sakura about to lift her arm to opt out, I slammed my hand on the desk, and her arm shot down. I glared into Ibiki's eyes and I growled lowly, only complete pussies would fall for such pitiful intimidation. I've seen civilians with better interrogation skills than you are. Either you're going soft or you went easy on us. Either way, I'm utterly disappointed on how easy it was to see through you, Ibiki Marino. And with that, I leaned back in my seat and kicked my feet up onto the desk, not caring. Anyone else want to leave? He asked, and when no one lifted their hands, he grinned. You all pass. Now I wah. But the window busting open by a purple-haired woman interrupted him. When she stood in front of us, I read the banner behind her and smirked. The sexy and single, Enko Mitarashi. Ibiki, however, didn't seem nearly as pleased. You're early, Enko. This Anko woman just waved at him dismissively before grabbing a sheet of paper from Ibiki's desk and glancing over it. 35 teams. Wow, you must be getting soft, Ibiki. My smirk turned into a grin at her comment, and Ibiki seemed to sense my joy as he glared in my direction. Alright, maggots. I want you all to meet me at Training Ground 44 tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. If you're late, or a teammate of yours is missing, your team is disqualified. She said with her hands balled up into fists on her hips, and when we all nodded, she tuned and jumped out of the shattered window, and with that Ibiki dismissed us. I ignored the door and hopped out the window like Anko had, ignoring the yells that I heard behind me, and I continued home. When I reached my building, I climbed up the side and jumped into my kitchen through the window, making my way to the bathroom. After taking a shower and brushing my teeth, I fell asleep, wondering what the second test of the Chunin exams could be. The next morning. Beep. 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 Was all my alarm clock could do before I picked it up and threw it at the wall, the pieces flying everywhere. Rolling out of bed, I went to the bathroom, tripping over myself every so often. I brushed my teeth, whizzed, and then stepped into the shower, turning it on cold so that I'd wake up faster, waiting till I was shivering and I could keep my eyes open completely before turning on the warm water, sighing in relief when I finally started warming up. After washing my hair, I stepped out of the shower and wrapped a towel around my waist before brushing my hair, using 2 Q-tips to get the water out of my ears before going into my bedroom to change. I put on a pair of gray ANBU pants, a white sleeveless muscle shirt and my black ninja sandals before going into the kitchen to make myself a bowl of oatmeal. I added cinnamon to the contents of my bowl and dug in, swallowing it down with my milk before creating a clone to handle the dishes, jumping out the window as I made my way to the forest of death, knowing that my teammates would already know where to go, and by the time I reached the supposed training ground a majority of the genin had arrived, and my teammates were over under a small cluster of trees. I was making my way over to them when my arm was grabbed suddenly and I was spun around, and since I didn't know whose chakra it was, I let myself get turned so I could see who it was. "What's your name, kid?" the girl asked. She wore long black fingerless gloves that went up to her elbows with chakra-induced metal on the back of her hands. She wore a tight tank top that had straight shoulders with no sleeves and a hood attached, which hung on her head. Around her neck sat a headband with a swirl in the middle. She wore black leggings and black ninja sandals, and her crimson red hair was let loose, the straight locks framing her face parted straight down the middle. "My name's Naruto Uzumaki, though I don't see why my name is any of your concern." I didn't know why she cared, but a part of me told her to trust her, while another told me to be wary of her, so I was just doing my best to play my cards right. She looked surprised at my last name before a snarl overcame her pretty face. "All Uzumakis have crimson hair, so sorry to burst your bubble, but you aren't an Uzumaki." I snarled right back at her, angry that she was trying to take away something of my identity. The Hokage gave me the last name Uzumaki, so whether I am one or not makes no difference. That is my last name and it will stay that way. I could feel my hair spike up more than usual due to my anger, and I saw the girl stiffen as recognition flashed in her eyes, and she backed up before turning and walking away, but not before saying over her shoulder, "Go to Nami no Kuni, if answers and home are what you seek," and with that she left. I glared at her lovely backside for a few moments before I turned to see my teammates looking at me with questioning gazes, even though Sasuke's was more toned down, and I sighed before making my way over to them. No, I don't know who she is, nor why chose to talk to me. I don't know her name, age, all I know is that she is apparently from another hidden village by the name of Yuzu. That cover the more important questions? I ask before they can start bombarding me with questions, well, more like Sakura bombarding me, as Sasuke acted too sophisticated, aka too stuck up for that type of thing. She nodded, and I sighed before leaning back against closest tree, already having taken note of the 2 people watching me, one being Hinata, who I could see watching me from behind a tree, that weird look still in her eye, and the other person being Gaara, who was muttering to himself about mother and rivers of blood. I raised my wrought eyebrow at the last part, but then I just decided to tune it out, closing my eyes as I slid down the tree, completely relaxed as my lower body laid against the soft grass and my upper body laid against the soft oak bark of the tree behind me. I had complete serenity, until I heard a kunai whizzing towards me, and I stopped it by making my shoulder blade fly out and deflect it, my right eye peeking open to see the woman from yesterday, Anko if I remembered correctly, standing there, looking slightly pissed, most likely from my deflecting her kunai. "Alright, maggots. Get your asses over here and listen up." We all gathered around her and waited for her to continue. "This is my little playground, also known as Training Ground 44, or the forest of death? She flashed an eat-shit grin at us before continuing. Inside are wild animals, poisonous plants and, once I release you all into the forest, enemy genin who will most likely be setting up traps for you and your teammates. The goal for you maggots is to get to the tower in the middle of the forest with 2 scrolls. The Heaven Scroll, she held up a white scroll, and the Earth Scroll, she then held up a brown scroll. If you only bring 1 scroll to the tower, you and your teammates get disqualified. If a teammate gets severely wounded or murdered, then your team is disqualified. If you open either scrolls before reaching the tower, then you get disqualified as well, and a second punishment will be given as well. Any questions? She asked, and I saw Choji raise his hand. What about food? Anko smirked at the chip-munching boy, and he seemed to shrink back. There's plenty of food in the forest, just make sure you kill it before it kills you. Also, no bringing in anything except weapons to help you along in there. That means no food, medicine, or extra clothes can be brought with you, or anything of the like, am I clear? Good. You will exchange such things in the tent over there in exchange for a Heaven or Earth Scroll, and 1 team will go in at a time for privacy, so that no one knows who has what scroll. After that, a Jonin will take 1 genin team to a different gate leading into the forest of death. She then turned and walked to the tent, leaving us to stand there before a Jonin came out of the tent and put us into a single file line. When everyone had a scroll, a large group of Jonin came and took a genin team each to their designated gate. We were taken to the 23rd gate, and we waited in front of the chain link gate before we heard the loud horn resound, and said gate opened. We dashed inside, and about 5 minutes and I signaled my team to a stop. We stopped in the trees, and of course Sakura started speaking before I could. Why did you stop us, Naruto? She asked, her voice demanding yet less loud and annoying than usual. I stopped us because I want to hold the scroll. I can protect it the best, and while people might think it's me holding it, I'd rather be the targeted one than you two, as we all know I can handle what fellow genins can do better than either of you. Sasuke glared at me, but he knew it was true, and so he handed it over. I put it in a seal on my right bicep before creating a shadow clone and having it turn into a duplicate of the Earth Scroll we had. I want you to hold this, Sasuke, it'll help us keep face, and if people target you they won't get the actual scroll, which will give me enough time to knock them out and take their Heaven Scroll by the time they figure out it's a fake. Sound good? He nodded and took the scroll from my hand, stuffing it into his pocket where he'd stashed the original, and after that we took off again, Sasuke as the leader, Sakura in the middle, with me taking up our behind defenses. We tree jumped at normal speeds, but by the time the date ended we'd only run into a few overly large snakes, a few spiders and a large cat, though I couldn't tell what species it was. We set up camps in the trees due to my pestering of it being safer, and so after Sasuke and I forced Sakura to tie herself up around the waist to a tree, we did the same to ourselves, staying close together and using only the best of our ninja rope to keep us in place. Time skip a few hours later. I woke up to the feeling of something bad coming towards us, so I quickly untied myself and woke up Sasuke and Sakura before forcing them to take off at the fastest they could through the trees, and that was when the chase began. We zigzagged throughout the forest, coming across a few teams and only one with a Heaven Scroll, yet wherever we went the dark aura kept following us, and whenever we stopped to battle a different team of genin the aura just got closer. I was leaving small traps and pranks wherever I went, stinky bombs triggered by tripwire, knockout gas bombs, also triggered by wire, as well as pain traps here and there designed to fuck up one's clothes and her hair, but I didn't sense them going off, which meant this person was good at observing things, or he was just better than the average genin at noticing things at the last second, which could explain why he was able to avoid the trap either way. I didn't know why he was following us, but I really couldn't focus on that. Every minute we moved he got closer by a minute, and Sasuke and Sakura were tiring out, which meant something needed to be done fast. I stopped my teammates and created 2 clones, who quickly summoned the ink and paint brushes from the seal on their right backhand, and they set to work writing seals on Sakura and Sasuke, making sure that the seals were effective in what they were doing, hiding any traceable smell and blotting out even a hint of their chakra, and once the seals had fully masked their presences it had taken 10 minutes, and I could feel the enemy nearly upon us. I activated the presence hiding seal that I put on myself before my clones followed my lead, and after a quick chat with them I told Sakura and Sasuke to stay back and stay calm as my clones picked them up and dashed off, leaving me on the branch, shaking from the adrenaline coursing through my veins for a few seconds before I pushed the feeling away and summoned the Kubikiribocho in my right hand and created a bone sword in my left. I hid behind a tree just as a female broke into the clearing. She had pale skin with raven black hair, her evil-looking eyes scanning the perimeter for signs of life while I created a mist, much like I'd seen Zabuza do when he'd been alive and kicking, and I saw the girl's eyes narrow when the mist settled in, but when she jumped into said mist it surprised me. My own eyes narrowed and I picked my swords back up before silently jumping into the mist as well. I expanded my chakra to get an image of my surroundings, something I was still rough at, but my sense of hearing made up for that. Looks like you have some talent, demon brat. If only I could mark you, but that wretched Kyubi would just get rid of my seal, and that would just be a waste of my preparations. I heard her voice echo out, and my eyebrows drew together in confusion. Why is she talking about the Kyubi, and why would it release a mark this genin would put on me? I was drawn out of my thoughts when a force of chakra rivaling my own washed over the area, and my eyes widened in shock. This woman isn't a genin at all. Shit! Was all I could think before I heard nearly completely quiet footfalls to my left, and I jumped forward just in time to not get sliced in half by a blade. My eyes narrowed on the steel. It looked familiar, but I couldn't place from where I knew it. Do you like my Kusanagi, boy? It'll be the weapon that kills you. My eyes widened yet again. That was a rare and legendary sword, which no mere genin should ever touch, let alone wield. It was then I knew that I could very well get either seriously injured or killed in this battle, and my mind flashed back to the scroll. I sealed my Kubakirabocho back into its seal before I created a shadow clone that took the scroll away, and when I heard the female nin take off after it my mind started racing as I tried thinking up a plan, and one stuck out as one that could very well work. I summoned as many clones as I thought necessary for killing this person, which was about 500, and had one sneak up behind the female nin chasing after my scroll-bearing clone and throw the female nin into the thick of my clones, and I started running as fast as I could, just like my clone who wielded the scroll, when my clones yelled out. Great clone explosion! The blast sent me and my clone a good 30 yards away from where we'd been when my other clones had gone off, and once the clone holding my scroll dispelled from hitting a tree I picked the scroll up and held it at the ready while I faced the large fire that I'd created, waiting for any signs of life just in case. My eyes widened in horror as the woman walked out of the flames, her clothes burning off and her skin falling into little pools of flesh on the ground, revealing a man with even paler skin, looking almost sickly, with a shade darker black hair, a sick grin on his face, and his abnormally long tongue was hanging out, licking his lips like a snake. Wait a second, like SNA Hali Shit, it's Orochimaru of the Sannin. I am so screwed, and since screwed people go stupid when they realize how screwed they are, I unraveled my team's Earth Scroll, and out came a Jonin. He looked like he was going to turn and speak to me, when his eyes landed on Orochimaru, and I could tell from his scent he became fearful of the situation he'd been summoned into. Shit kid, you have to run, as in right now. I heeded his words and took off running, and as I dashed off I could sense the Jonin flare up his chakra before it suddenly changed into water-type chakra, and that's when I realized that the Jonin and Orochimaru were fighting. Even though I knew he wouldn't last very long, I made my way to Sasuke and Sakura, the location I knew from one of my clones dispelling, just as I felt a whole group of people move towards where I still felt Orochimaru's presence, and I doubled up my speed when my second clone was suddenly dispelled by the single Oto Nin team. My team was in a clearing, laying down underneath a large tree, and when I arrived I saw Sakura standing there with Sasuke, both looking weary but still kicking. I growled before jumping down into the clearing, surprising the Oto team enough to dispatch the leader with the weird gauntlet on his hand, Sakura taking on the female with bells while Sasuke started dealing with the other boy. I looted the supposed leader of the Oto team's body before turning just in time to see Sasuke take down his opponent and help Sakura finish off hers. After instructing them to loot their enemies' bodies I turned and moved to hop up into a nearby tree, when I suddenly blacked out from chakra exhaustion, falling face first into the dirt, not hearing anything as I fell over. Naruto's Mindscape. Well, hello brat. It's about time you came to talk to me, this sewer is annoying and boring as fuck to be in. Third person POV. Well, hello brat. It's about time you came to talk to me, this sewer is annoying and boring as fuck to be in. Naruto looked around confused, but when he looked behind himself he saw tall metal bars with a piece of paper in the middle with ink. A seal. Naruto thought as he wondered what he could be dreaming about. No shit Sherlock, of course it's a seal. Tell me, are you always this stupid? Che, I thought the person who inherited my father's eyes would at least have some brain power. Naruto didn't know what was happening, so he turned his body around to face the cage and walked forward cautiously, his face a mask of calmness. He immediately jumped back when a large red paw suddenly darted out, claws coming from their resting place, hidden beneath the crimson fur, rushing out in an attempt to impale his midsection. At least you're smart enough to be cautious, I'll give you that much. Tell me, do you know why you're here? The sewer that Naruto was in suddenly brightened, and he saw a tailed beast he thought killed off 12 years ago on his birthday. The Kyuubi no Kitsune sat in front of him, behind bars with an ever-present evil glint in his eyes. No sir. Naruto managed to answer in a calm voice, even though he was nearly shaking with fear. The Kyuubi raised an eyebrow. You smell of fear and yet you stand there unwavering. I think at least some respect is deserved for that, as very few humans have managed to do that, let alone someone as small as you. You're here because you have finally awakened your bloodline, the Rinnegan. Naruto raised his own eyebrow this time, and the Kyuubi could only shake his head. The Rinnegan is the most powerful Idojutsu, even the strongest bloodline limit, to ever exist. A man, the first ninja to exist, who went by the name of the Rikudo Sennin, was born with this bloodline limit, and with it he gave other humans chakra. Anyways, the Rinnegan has many capabilities such as, you can have a total of 6 paths, Preta, which can absorb all forms of chakra, including most ninjutsu, animal, which allows the user to summon a wide variety of creatures, like summons, only they don't bitch about being killed and summoned again, and since they're an extension of you they won't have feelings in general, so, the more you know. The human path lets the Rinnegan wielder read a person's mind and gain their memories, however, this takes that person's soul so they will die once you have such information. The Deva path, which allows the user to manipulate both attractive and repulsive forces, meaning you can basically whisper Shinra Tensei and whoever you wanted to hurt will be flung backwards like a baby doll, and the person will be pulled to you if you whisper Bansho Tenin. The Azura path grants the wielder mechanical limbs, weaponry and armor, which I have a feeling you won't be using much with the bone bloodline you also have. The Naraka path allows you to summon and control the King of Hell, who can be used to interrogate someone, for if they're lying or refuse to answer they get their tongues ripped out, thus causing their deaths. If they tell the truth the hands of the King of Death leave them be, but they are severely exhausted from the ordeal. If you had killed someone recently and want them to come back to life, then you can also summon the king to release their souls back into their bodies, and thus they become alive again. Lastly, the outer path of the Rinnegan has the power over life and death, meaning that you can use it to revive someone of your choosing, or if someone touches your black receivers, which I'll have you install later, you can bind and control the person who touched your black receivers. An authentic Rinnegan wielder, like yourself, has the ability to summon the demonic statue of the outer path, which allows you to create chakra chains that can bind someone with an even greater binding power. All of your paths, and summons given to you through the paths, have the Rinnegan reflected in their eyes, which means whatever they see you see as well. There are other things that you can do with the Rinnegan, but that's all you need to know for now. Now if you'll excuse me, I am in need of sleep, and I don't need annoying little blonde brats to keep me awake, so leave. And don't you dare fail in fights to come or I'll whip your ass till Tuesday. The large demon fox said, and of course Naruto decided to be cheeky for the first time in his life at that moment, asking, what if it's already Tuesday, and all he got in reply was a growl and a get the fuck out of here, before he was thrown out of his own mindscape. Forest of Death, with Team 7. In between Naruto and Sakura was Naruto, unconscious and, with both of our favorite Uzumaki's teammates forced to become his bodyguards, they were both limping and extremely tired. Stop. Right, now. Mumbled Naruto as he woke up, standing up completely so he wasn't leaning on either of his teammates anymore, and said teammates breathed a sigh of relief before falling on their bums. I guess we'll have to work on your stamina training, but then again that's not what's important right now. Said Naruto after the minute it took him to become completely awake. He summoned 2 clones and each picked up one of Naruto's teammates who were taking a well-deserved timeout. Neither complained about being carried, and they just gulped down the last of the water in their water bottles before leaning back. They were close to the tower, but Naruto could tell that they, most likely at least, didn't have a heaven scroll. How long was I out for and do we have a heaven scroll? He asked, needing to know. We don't have a heaven scroll, but the earth scroll is still in your seal. A few teams tried taking the scroll from me while you were unconscious, and I just handed the fake over, but your clone had knocked out the team it had been taken with and knocked them out, but it came back to inform us that the team also only had an earth scroll before dispersing. You have been asleep for 2 days, and if we don't get a heaven scroll soon I don't think our team will pass. Sasuke answered, and Sakura only nodded in agreement. Take them up ahead, I'll catch up to you guys in a bit. Naruto said, and his clones knew what he was about to do as they started tree hopping. Naruto had only half his chakra restored, and so he had to be careful. Rinnegan, he stated as he sent chakra to his eyes, and the blue instantly was replaced with purple eyes with black rings. His eyes searched throughout the forest, and to his luck he saw a team of Chunin coming his way. Grinning, he moved over to a tree and hinged into a stick, and after a few minutes of waiting the team entered the clearing and stopped. I sensed chakra near that tree, someone must be hiding here. The one in the middle stated. So they have a sensor ninja HM? Let's see if he can sense this. Shinra Tensei, Naruto whispered, and the guy in the middle was thrown into the tree behind him, rendering him unconscious. Holy fuck! The overgrown fox was lying. That's actually pretty cool. Naruto's POV. I unhinged myself, and thus the ninja turned to me. Shinra Tensei. This time I used a little more power, and both were flung into trees. I was grinning, thinking about how fucking badass I was to have this, when I realized that even though this was powerful, there was always someone that could best it, so I shook the cockiness out of my system and searched the knocked out Kiri ninja for a scroll, and I found the heaven scroll on the one that had been in the middle. Figures. I then unactivated my Rinnegan and took off, racing after my teammates. My clones had taken them closer to the tower, and so when I reached them I made a ram sign and we all sped up, causing Sakura to clutch onto the clone holding her and Sasuke's face to turn green from the unexpected speed change, but we reached the tower faster regardless. It was around 8 p.m. when we reached the tower, so I had my clones put my teammates down before dispelling them, and so Team 7 walked into the tower together. I had spent a total of 2 days sleeping during the day and working out at night, doing it that way so that the nurses couldn't stop me from working out like they did during the day when they were present. The 5-day trial of the second exam of the Chunin exams was finally over, and everyone was summoned by the Hokage into a large arena-type room, and I immediately realized what was going to happen. I should have spent more time taking scrolls so that so many people wouldn't have passed, damn it. I didn't really pay all that much attention to the Hokage's speech, and so when we were all told to go into the balconies, Konoha Nin took one side and the foreign Nin the other. Nothing better in the morning than segregation. I muttered to myself as I climbed the stairs to join my team, but when I reached the top of the stairs I was stopped and pulled to the side by Kakashi-sensei. How were you able to defeat Orochimaru? I could tell he wasn't going to let up, so I sighed and explained. When I stole the forbidden scroll I learned the technique Great Clone Explosion. I summoned about 200 clones and let them all go off, thinking it would kill the grass Nin that was trying to kill me when the girl emerged from the smoke, skin peeling off to reveal Orochimaru of the Sand Nin with a weird-ass grin on his face, and him being the real Orochimaru was confirmed when I saw his long-ass tongue roll out of his mouth and fail at licking the dude's lips, which had to be one of the creepiest, most disgusting things I'd ever seen. I took out my scroll and out came a Jonin who told me to leave the area, and so I did. Anything else you'd like to interrogate me for, Kakashi-sensei? The man shook his head and released me. I then walked over to Sasuke and Sakura, who looked like they were actually having a decent conversation for once, and when I got closer I realized they were talking about the other Chunin hopefuls, and even though Sakura was agreeing with most of the things being said, Sasuke didn't seem to either notice or care. I chose to ignore them and lean on the railing, watching the fights. There's some people that were doomed to fail, like that 10-10 girl when she went up against that Temari chick, since Win always beat weaponry, and the only ones I enjoyed was the one with Sakura versus Ino, and since Sakura had gotten some training from me, and obviously practiced what I taught her at home, she was easily able to beat Ino after knocking the blonde around like a soccer ball, and with that my team's Pinkette was announced the winner. Sasuke was another amusing one to watch, as the guy he was fighting against could absorb chakra on contact, so after playing around a bit Sasuke KO'd the guy, and with a smirk the resident Uchiha climbed the stairs and started talking with Sakura again, causing me to smirk as I realized how they were so gonna start dating soon. After all, it was obvious to everyone how much Sakura was into Sasuke, and it was only a matter of time before Sasuke realized how much Sakura actually loved and cared for him. After a few more matches mine came up, and I had to fight Kiba. Good luck, Naruto. I heard Hinata mutter, and I just smirked at her and waved before heading downstairs to fight the fellow Konoha ninja. Soon enough Kiba and I were facing off, and as soon as the coughing man started the match Kiba tried going all alpha male on me. Someday, Naruto, I'm gonna be the Hokage, and when I do I'm gonna make it so all the women have to wear tank tops and short shorts, and they all have to service me whenever I like. He proclaimed, and I just shook my head. Kiba, you are a dumbass. Not even the third Hokage, the biggest pervert I've met so far, has not tried to use his title to force any women to fuck him. You know why? Because even though he's the strongest person in Konoha, having one woman pissed off at you is deadly. What you plan on doing when you become Hokage, which will never happen, will not get just one, but maybe even a dozen girls pissed at you, which will result in not even your ashes being left behind. Also, I win. Kiba looked confused for a second, but he was quickly knocked out by my clone that I'd had sneak up behind him, resulting in him falling face first to the floor. And that is why you'll never become Hokage. Dipshit. I say to his unconscious form before moving to the stairs to walk back to my team. I made this for you, Naruto. It helps heal cuts and scrapes, I hope you like it. Hinata said demurely as she stops me on my way to my team. I didn't really need the cream myself, as I healed quickly, but I took it anyways as I wasn't used to people going out of their way to be nice to me, and it was a good change from the norm. Thanks, Hinata. Wait, why is your face getting all red? I ask her, looking into her eyes as I got closer, putting my hand on her forehead. She faints when my hand touches her forehead, and I grab her before she falls and hands her to her sensei with a bow before returning to my team. What was that about Naruto? Sakura asked me, and I shrugged. I don't know. Hinata's just acting odd. I think she might be coming down with something. I saw Sakura facepalm, but I shrugged it off and resigned myself to watch the next few battles. The next battle was between Neji and Hinata Hyuga, and I grew more and more angry as Hinata just stood there, taking the smackdown Neji was giving her. You wanna save her, Naruto? Think of a small black receiver coming out of your hand, and when it appears, I want you to throw it down at that Hyuga girl's feet so she'll be sure to touch it. After that, you can control her. You want to help her, make her win. I did as I was told, and when Hinata stepped on the small black receiver, I immediately saw, heard, felt, and smelled everything she was, and I grinned. I took over her mind and started lashing out, sending Juken strikes at speeds that rivaled Neji. Neji apparently hadn't been expecting that, as he stopped attacking for a moment, and that was all I needed to make Hinata start lashing out at him, striking as many Tenketsu points. I looked through Hinata's memories as I kept attacking Neji, and one move in particular caught my attention, and I started to try and do it. I took the stance and smirked when I saw that Neji was within my field of deviation. You are within my field of deviation. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. I struck 2 Tenketsu, then another 2, followed by 4 consecutive hits to make 8, then I did 8 more strikes, making 16 the total number of strikes so far, and the number of strikes kept multiplying, from 16 to 32, and another 32 strikes were made to get a total of 64 consecutive strikes, the final blow being dealt after a strong step forward. Neji flew back into the wall behind him, and after Hinata was announced the winner, I gave up control over Hinata, who promptly collapsed. I sent a clone with the girl so I could explain what happened immediately after she woke up, and after that the only one even relatively exciting was the one between that Gaara kid and that spandex-wearing Lee kid, and I actually felt sorry for that Lee kid, which was why I interrupted the fight by knocking Gaara out just as he was surrounding his sand around Lee's arm and leg. Lee looked at me questioningly and in shock, and I just shrugged. This was a way too shitty way to end your career. Don't fail in a fight next time, because I won't be able to save you. I helped him up and patted him on the back, congratulating him on the fight before I went back to my team as Gaara was announced the winner by Lee being helped mid-battle, but I'd rather Lee lose this battle than his life. I wasn't that heartless after all. The last battle was between Choji Akimichi and the Sound Nin I'd fought in the forest, and after Choji lost, the Hokage pulled out a hat and told us winners to draw a number. The fights ended up being me versus Hinata, the Doso guy from Sound versus Gaara, Sakura versus Temari, Sasuke versus Shikamaru, and Shino versus Kankuro. After that we were told to go and train for a month, which I found retarded since we'd had all these exams in a row, just to take month break for training? Yeah right, most likely the Hokage wants to make some money off us and invited a bunch of rich people to come see us battle. Whoopee. Kakashi took Sasuke to train and tried to leave us with Ebisu, a man I'd met before and found highly irritating, so I refused on both my behalf and Sakura's and shunned Shinette away with said Pinkette after creating a clone to go find Hinata and wait at her bedside, and so once we appeared at Training Ground 7 we started training after I summoned another clone to go get supplies. After all, we weren't leaving this training ground unless absolutely necessary. And that necessity didn't include getting a proper shower or bath. After all, there was a stream flowing through the training ground, we could clean off there. Though I do have this feeling that Sakura wasn't going to like the idea of going without a proper bath for so long. Oh well, she needs to be prepared, and I will prepare her. Third-person POV. It had been 3 days since the start of their training, and Sakura felt like she was going to die. A heat wave had hit Konoha, so every day was boiling hot, to the point where she only wore a sports bra, shorts, and ninja sandals, but the nights were freezing cold in comparison. Every night she took a bath in the freezing stream flowing through the training field, and every night she'd bundle up in the blankets. The constant change in hot and cold was getting slightly more bearable, but it was a nuisance that Sakura hated nonetheless. She had no idea how Naruto was constantly shirtless, night and day, but whenever she saw him shirtless at night she was too busy trying to get warm to ask. Naruto himself was slightly bothered by the weather, but he dealt with far colder weathers in just a shirt and cargo shorts, so it was only ever a slight nuisance. What really irked him was the daytime. It was far too hot and it made him start sweating and his need for water grow far too fast for his liking. He always had 3 water bottles as extra while training, just in case he was especially thirsty, and he always downed 3 bottles in total out of the 4 every day. He didn't allow himself more nor less than that. The first day had been solely jogging around the training ground a few times, 20 push-ups, 20 judo sit-ups, and then some stretches before Naruto had stopped Sakura for the day. The next day went the same, only this time Naruto had Sakura do 50 squats. On the third day everything that had been done the first and second days was accompanied by Naruto having Sakura do 20 front, side, hook, roundhouse, and inside/outside crescent kicks per leg, and so now we see Sakura on the ground huffing and puffing as the harsh rays of the sun beat down on her. That's all I'll have you do today, Sakura. Over under the trees are 2 water bottles and an umbrella for shade. Enjoy. Sakura glared at him for his happy tone, still feeling overall like crap, so after yelling at Naruto to help her up, she started stumbling over to the water bottles, leaving Naruto to do his own special training. She watched as he sparred the air, throwing fierce punches and wide-ranged kicks till his hair was completely limp with sweat, and he, for the first time she'd ever seen, was panting heavily. He had water bottles under the tree next to her, so she decided to be nice and tossed him one, which he caught with a smile of thanks. He was truly a great piece of eye candy, but he'd always preferred Sasuke's darker colors, but Naruto sure as hell was a close second. She watched him summon around 100 clones and blushed, thinking about what all that technique could be used for, when she shook her head before a large, dark grin settled on her face. Maybe Naruto can teach that move to Sasuke-kun. Oh. 3 Sasukes at once. It sounds like heaven. Sakura thought as she spaced out, not noticing when Naruto created a bone sword for his left hand and took out the Kubikirabocho from its seal and put it in his right hand before starting to swing them, swinging the Kubikirabocho and making jabs with the bone sword, which, unlike the Kubikirabocho, had a sharp, pointed end. Naruto was skilled when it came to wielding his weapons easily, or at least making his movements graceful and calculated, but it was far harder to control such large swords and use them properly than it was to just swing wildly. By the time 5 minutes had passed, Naruto's arms felt like lead, so he sealed his butcher blade back into his arm and threw the bone sword into the trees, causing the bone to roll over repeatedly until it stilled right next to Sakura. The resounding clack the tree bark made when it got hit by the bone was enough to awaken Sakura out of whatever dreamland she was in, and she tossed another bottle to him. Gulping down the contents of the bottle just as fast as last time, Naruto started going over his kicks, doing 30 side, front, hook, roundhouse, and inside/outside crescent kicks on each leg to get a total 50 kicks per type of kick, the kicks he'd done with Sakura earlier making that total. He also did 30 judo sit-ups before deciding to stop for the day. The next day the clone Naruto had sent with Hinata dispelled, revealing that she had been told by the now dispelled clone that if she went to training ground 7 she'd be able to train with Naruto and Sakura, and the last the clone saw the Hyuga heiress was coming their way. Hinata arrived 5 minutes later, and Naruto readily welcomed her into their training group with a small smile, even though he got extremely confused when her face turned as red as a tomato. Either way, Naruto told her how he'd been the one to help her win, and even though Hinata didn't feel good about winning that way, she accepted the help from him, and so they started training together. Hinata was more used to physical workouts than Sakura had been in the beginning, but not by much. Naruto started Hinata's training small much like he did Sakura's, and on the 5th day Naruto and Sakura had been on the training ground. Hinata's 2nd day, Naruto started trying to get Sakura to channel chakra into her fists to boost her strength. At first she had been struggling with how to do it correctly, but after Hinata helped and pressed the pressure points Sakura had to put her chakra into to make the technique work, everything went smoothly. Naruto didn't try it, as he told them he had other powers he'd focus on, but both girls took it upon themselves to learn the technique, Hinata especially when Naruto complimented her. Naruto started helping Hinata with her gentle fist style on her 5th day at training ground 7, telling her to use him as a test subject, which she didn't like at all. It took Naruto a day to realize that Hinata wouldn't hurt him unless he forced her to, which she hated, so instead he had Hinata spar Sakura instead. What Hinata lacked in strength she made up for in flexibility and speed, and what Sakura lacked in flexibility and speed she made up for in strength, making their fights rather interesting. The routine was difficult, but after Sakura's 10th day there she stopped complaining completely, and the Pinkette and Hinata actually started a friendship, though it should have been expected since they were around each other all the time. By the 2nd week in the month Sakura's period had started, and all Naruto was told was that Sakura wasn't feeling well and had to go home for a few days by Hinata. Since Hinata was the only one to teach, Naruto went even harder on her than normal, and by the time Sakura came back Hinata was extremely tired. Not a day after Sakura had returned Hinata started as well, so Sakura used the same excuse Hinata had used for her, and Naruto, while confused as to why Hinata was sick with apparently the same sickness Sakura had been, he just shrugged it off after receiving a glare from Sakura. Sakura felt Naruto's training wrath just like Hinata had, and the day Hyuga returned Sakura was too tired to get up and greet the girl, deciding instead to stay in her sleeping bag. After that they only had 5 days before the exams, and so Naruto forced the girls to sit in a seat horse stance for 5 minutes, do all of their kicks 75 times per leg, and go over all of their punches and kicks. They did this for 3 days straight before having a day of rest. They stayed in their bedrolls the whole day, only getting up to eat, drink, or go to the bathroom, and that night Naruto created 3 clones to give them back rubs, which everyone was thankful for. The next day the 3 practiced with weapons, not kunai or shuriken, but sanban, katanas and things of the like. Sakura chose a bastard sword made of Naruto's bone. It was completely white as it didn't have a proper hilt at the moment, and it was the length of her forearm. Hinata chose bone sanban, so Naruto created a clone to make a target, and after that they set about to work. The real Naruto worked with Sakura while Hinata worked with a clone who taught her how to throw sanban correctly. However, the clone had to stay at a certain distance lest Hinata start blushing and lose focus. Near midday Hinata was better than most beginners, but she only hit the outer rings of the target, so after a quick discussion the clone and the real Naruto switched pupils, the clone working with Sakura on movement and footwork while the real Naruto told Hinata to sit down and wait for a surprise, and she listened dutifully. It took Naruto around 7 minutes and around 10 fails, but when he finally finished he was happy with his creations to say the least. He'd had to form the gloves around Hinata's hand and, once they were finished, Naruto noted with pride that Hinata smiled softly at her presence. They were gloves with a simple button-activated mechanism that, once the button in the middle of the palm of the glove was pressed, which could be done by Hinata clenching her fist, 2 finger-shaped bone daggers popped out right above where her pointer and middle finger were, and since you could channel chakra through the bone it made Hinata's gentle fist style all the more deadly. "Clench your fists real quick," Naruto told her, and Hinata actually grinned when she saw the daggers coming out of both gloves, quickly unclenching her hands and wrapping them around Naruto's neck, hugging him. Naruto immediately stiffened and the small smile that had been on his face dropped, and Hinata pulled back with a blush when she realized what she'd just done. "I'm sorry Naruto K-" Hinata was cut off by Naruto hugging her. Now it was her turn to freeze. "That's the first time anyone's ever hugged me, Hinata, thank you." Naruto pulled back before it got too weird and stared into Hinata's eyes. Said Hyuga seemed to just realize that not only had she just hugged her crush, but he'd hugged her back, so it's not that big a surprise that she fainted. The next day was another day of rest, the trio enjoying their last day of peace before they'd be fighting the largest fight of their lives. If only they knew. Naruto's POV. We were all lined up facing the Hokage and Otokage. The only sound needed to get through to the third part of the exam wasn't present, neither was Sasuke, but other than that everyone was present. Gaara was in between his siblings Kankuro and Temari, I was in between Hinata and Sakura, Shino was to the right of Hinata as I was on her left, and beside him were the Sand Trio. To Sakura's right stood Shikamaru, and right now we were just waiting for Sasuke and that Doso guy. We were all just standing there, but unlike everyone else I was having a conversation, not just standing there looking like an idiot. "So Hinata, who do you like?" Sakura asked, and although I could see the Pinkette's eyes moving back and forth between me and Hinata with a grin, I just shrugged it off as another weird thing girls do. Hinata started blushing and stuttering, but that only seemed to cause Sakura's smile to widen, and I decided that I'd just not try and contribute to their conversation any for my sanity, at least whatever was left of it. After another 5 minutes, the Hokage pronounced that the matches would go on, and if the missing persons didn't come in time for their match, they would be disqualified. Hinata and I were instructed to stay in the arena as the other genin went up into the stands as our match was first, and a guy, apparently the new instructor, came down, a silver senbon in his mouth. Okay. This match is between one Naruto Uzumaki and one Hinata Hyuga. They will be fighting a one-on-one battle where everything goes unless I tell you to stop. Any question? He asked us, and both of us shook our heads. Then let this match begin. And with that he jumped back. Hinata stared at me, and I stared at her, both of us looking for an opening, waiting for the other to move first. Hyugas were known for their patience, so I knew that unless I made the first move, nothing was going to happen for a very long time, and that would be both boring and ridiculous. I rushed at her first, and although I saw the slight surprise in her eyes, her gaze hardened, and I immediately knew that she was now completely and utterly serious, something I hadn't seen her do concerning me in, well, ever. It made adrenaline start pumping through my veins, and when I heard her shout Byakugan, I knew that I had to stop rushing at her, lest my limbs go numb. She settled into her Hyuga stance, her pale white eyes glaring at me, and I smirked and winked in acknowledgement. Don't hold anything back, Hinata, because I sure as hell won't be going easy on you. My words seemed to make her excitement grow, and she dashed forward, fists clenched, daggers out. I unsealed Kubikiribocho just in time to block her attack, but she kept coming, and all I could do with my blade was block, as I wasn't yet fast enough to both parry and attack, at least not when battling someone with Hinata's speed. I was grinning the whole time she kept attacking though, and as Kubikiribocho actually gained a chip in its metal, I quickly created a bastard sword in my left hand and resealed Kubikiribocho with my right, beginning to parry with the far lighter bastard sword. It was now a battle of wits, who could calculate their moves and get more time to damage the other better, and for the first time I saw Hinata fight just as viciously as she was being fought, and it actually made me like her more. She swung her left hand at me, and I knew I had 1 second to get a cut in before her right hand came up to try and cut me again. I ended up getting a small cut on her stomach before her right fist, instead of punching me like I'd expected, came up and shoved the sword away from her stomach and protected her middle while her left fist came up again and caught me in the stomach, causing blood to drip. Hinata stopped all of a sudden at the sight of my blood, and that's all I need to rip her hand from my stomach, causing the wound to open even more, and turn her around, holding my blade to her neck. She stilled and looked at the proctor before raising her hand in defeat. I yield. She yelled, and I released her, dropping my blade to hunch over as I started panting from the unexpected workout I'd just gotten. When Hinata started apologizing, I shook my head and stood up straight, putting my arm around her shoulder as I used her as semi-support to get over to the other competitors. Don't apologize, Hina-chan. That was an amazing fight. I'd like to spar you like that more often. Don't worry about the wound, it'll heal sooner than you think. Trust me. She still looked worried about my wound, but by the time we'd reached the other competitors, the edges of my wound were already closing up. It would be tender for a while, yes, but it was better than having a gaping hole in the stomach. Plus, stitches were a bitch. See, Hinata? I'm already healing up. I told her, lifting my shirt so she could see that my wound was already healing. She looked confused but decided to let it alone for now. Instead, she took an ointment she had for scratches and started using it on the little nicks and scratches and cuts she'd coated my body with, and once she'd finished, I decided to return the favor. The light blush that had dusted her cheeks returned tenfold when I started applying the ointment onto her cuts with care, but I didn't pay that any mind. I just focused on trying to help her heal. When I'd finished, I'd realized that, since that Doso guy hadn't shown up, the second fight between Kankuro and Shino had been finished, with Shino being the winner by default as Kankuro had given up before they even got down the steps to the arena. After the proctor yelling a bit about Kankuro being a pansy, he had Temari and Sakura come down for the third fight, Temari gliding down on her fan while Sakura jumped down, landing dramatically with a small crated under her feet. Of course, she just had to show off. I could hear Hinata giggle lightly behind me, and with that we got closer to the edge to watch the match better. Sakura's POV. If that chick Temari thinks she's the only one that can show off, then I'll just have to show her own. Shinaro. If Sasuke gets here and sees us beating this girl's ass, he'll start dating us for sure. My inner self added, and when my feet touched the arena floor, I pushed chakra into my feet last minute to cause a small crated, and a smirk came onto my face as I walked to stand in the middle of the arena, opposite Temari. Okay. This match is between one Temari no Sabaku and one Sakura Haruno. They will be fighting a one-on-one battle where anything goes unless I tell you to stop. Any questions? We both shake our heads and face each other. I get my hands in front of me, ready to use, and Temari takes out her fan, opening it till I can see only one of the 3 moons that it had on in total. Then let this match begin. Proctor-san jumped out of the way just in time to avoid being hit by a wave of wind that was aimed at me. I moved to the right, then was forced to the left, then to the right, then to the left, and soon I was tired of Temari forcing me this way and that. Gritting my teeth, when I dodged to the left yet again I punched the ground, sending enough chakra into the ground that it made a hole the size of my body, and I quickly jumped into it. Thinking it over, I grinned as a plan formed in my mind. I heard Temari's feet coming towards my location, and when she was within 10 feet of my hole I quickly spun on my right foot, my hand flying out as I used little over half my chakra to push back the dirt around me. After spinning in a complete circle I stopped and the ground that surrounded me lowered a level. Temari, not expecting this sudden movement of the ground underneath her feet, stumbled back, and when I heard her teetering on her feet slightly I sent chakra into my feet and jumped out of the hole I'd made, dashing towards the wind mistress as fast as I could, using chakra to assist my movement. When I got close enough I used 1/3 of my remaining chakra and punched Temari in the face, sending the girl flying, and as she flew back I grabbed her fan and ripped it from her grasp so it didn't travel back with her. I waited, leaning against the fan, hoping she didn't get up, but she did, and she tried to stand straight, but I saw she wasn't completely stable. I myself wasn't feeling all that good, so I ran at her as fast as I could, which wasn't nearly as fast as before, and raised the fan in my hands and hit her in the head, using her own weapon to knock her out. Winner, Sakura Haruno. The proctor yelled, and the crowd started cheering wildly. I set the fan down beside the knocked-out form of Temari and started walking away to the other Chunin hopefuls, stumbling being more accurate, and apparently Naruto saw my difficulty, as he jumped down, picked me up princess style and jumped back up to our section of the stands. He sat me down next to Hinata and walked behind me, and started rubbing my shoulders. I felt my muscles start to loosen as Naruto started channeling chakra into his fingertips, and instead of just easing my muscles like I thought the chakra would, the chakra started going through my system. I started feeling sick from the foreign chakra in my body, but when his chakra reached my chakra core I realized what he was doing. His chakra started massaging the ball that was my chakra that sat in the middle of my stomach, and I realized that what he was doing was helping my chakra reserves start restoring again, though it was obviously a slow process, as it only sped the process of my chakra replenishing so much. It still helped though, and Naruto, Hinata and looked up to the Hokage for what he'd say next, because the next match was to be between Sasuke and Shikamaru, and Sasuke had yet to show up. After 2 minutes the Hokage stood up, his voice resounding all throughout the arena. As you all can see, Sasuke Uchiha had yet to arrive. He will be given 10 minutes to arrive, and if he does not arrive before the time is up he will be disqualified. Take this time to get more food and drink, or talk about what has happened so far. Thank you for your patience. And with that, the Hokage sat back down. Naruto rubbed my shoulders for 5 more minutes before he started on Hinata's shoulders, and she just sat back and relaxed as I worked my magic. He just finished Hinata's shoulders when the proctor started counting down from 10, and literally last second Sasuke and Kakashi shunshined into the middle of the field. Are we late? Kakashi asked in a bored tone of voice, and I couldn't stop myself from raising my eyebrow and smirking. That was just 2, Kakashi. You literally made it last second, Kakashi. Hopefully your laziness doesn't rub off on your student. Proctor-san said, but his statement was brushed off by Kakashi just waving his hand dismissively. I saw that Shikamaru wasn't willing to go down to the arena floor at all, so I snuck up behind him and pushed him over the ledge, and I was sure that if Shika's mom wasn't in the crowd, he would have given me the middle finger. Laughing it off, I leaned against the railing and got ready to watch the battle. Sasuke's POV. I stood opposite Shikamaru, taking in his overly relaxed stance, and I ignored whatever the proctor was saying. When Shikamaru shook his head I did so as well, just in case, and was relieved that the battle started. As the proctor jumped back I saw Shikamaru start going through seals and I started flipping backwards, stopping when I saw that Shikamaru's shadow wouldn't go any further. With a smirk I started flying through hand signs before yelling fireball jutsu. Shikamaru flipped back and ducked just in time to avoid the massive fireball I spat out, and as he stood up I activated my Sharingan. Hey Shikamaru. Guess what? I yelled at him, and he just raised an eyebrow. Surprise motherfucker. I whispered in his ear as I shunned Shinned behind him, knocking him out before he could react. The crowd went batshit insane, but I just looked up when I heard my name shouted in a familiar voice, and I saw Sakura beaming at me, her arms waving at me wildly. In my mind I smiled right back at her, and I'm sure if I had she would have fainted, but being an Uchiha I couldn't show such outright affection in public. It was something my dad had taught me before his untimely death, and one of the few things I remembered of him. I shunned Shinned behind her and tapped her shoulder, and when she turned and saw me her grin got even bigger as she threw her arms around my head, pulling me into a surprise hug. I froze, but she didn't care, and after a few moments, I hugged her back. When she pulled away, her bright green eyes were even brighter than normal, the green rivaling the emeralds that adorned my mother's favorite necklace, and for the first time in my life a small blush dusted my cheeks, and when I heard Sakura squeal I knew she'd seen it. After that we waited for that Doso guy for 10 minutes, but once he didn't arrive it was decided that I'd fight Gaara, most likely at the behest of the Kazekage. When we'd reached the arena floor the proctor said his words before jumping back. If Gaara was really that good with his sand, then trying to repeatedly take him down via Shunshin wouldn't help in the grand scheme of things, so instead I immediately flipped backwards till I reached the arena wall, and I immediately started running up. After reaching halfway I started flying through hand signs before hundreds of small chirping noises resounded through the arena, and when my hand was covered in a ball of lightning I shot forward, aiming at Gaara. He seemed pretty confident, as he didn't move in the slightest, and when I saw the sand rise up around him I grinned widely. Chidori! I yelled as shoved my hand out in front of me, the lightning surrounding my hand breaking through the sand with ease, and my hand flew right into Gaara's shoulder. I saw my fellow Genin's eyes widen before his crazed voice yelled, "Blood! My blood!" And I didn't have any time to react before sand surrounded my ankle and swung me around a few times before throwing me, and I hit the ground rolling till I hit the wall of the arena that I'd nearly just run off of. Sasuke's POV. Chidori! I yelled as shoved my hand out in front of me, the lightning surrounding my hand breaking through the sand with ease, and my hand flew right into Gaara's shoulder. I saw my fellow Genin's eyes widen before his crazed voice yelled, "Blood! My blood!" And I didn't have any time to react before sand surrounded my ankle and swung me around a few times before throwing me, and I hit the ground rolling till I hit the wall of the arena that I'd nearly just run off of. I, thankfully, didn't hit my head that hard, but when I looked up I saw Gaara being taken away by his brother while the arena stands went into absolute chaos. My gaze hardened as I ran after Gaara and his brother. I couldn't let him get away, I couldn't. My resolve hardened. I'll see you after I finish this up, Sakura. And with that I jumped out of the arena, chasing after the two Chunin. Trees. Brown and green. That's all I can see. Gaara and Kankuro were surprisingly fast, so now all I could do was follow the feel of Gaara's dark, dare I say demonic chakra, not wanting to waste my chakra with a Shunshin, just in case I didn't appear at the right place at the wrong time. I felt them stop and sped up a bit, and when I burst into the small clearing they'd stopped in I saw that a Sannin was talking with Kankuro. The Jonin sensed me first, and I could tell because he yelled at Kankuro to run further away. I stopped on a branch in front of the Jonin and got into my battle stance, ready to fight when I heard a buzzing behind me. I'll deal with the Jonin, Sasuke. I've yet to fight today, I want my turn. Sasuke could tell that it was Shino, and knew that the Aburame was still angry about not being able to fight Kankuro, so I nodded to the bug user and took off, leaving Shino to his battle. Naruto's POV. There was fighting going on all around us, and I was definitely one of the main few combatants, as both Sakura and Hinata were awakening other ninja that had fallen for the genjutsu that had been cast over the arena stands. I had my chest encased in bone as a pseudo-chest plate and I was using two bastard swords, slashing and trashing San and Sound Nians and making sure to spit some Sinbon at them as well. I sensed something behind me and moved just in time to avoid a kunai aimed at my head, and I turned around to block the second one. It was another San Chunin, and before I could take her out Kakashi appeared out of nowhere and knocked the kunoichi out. Naruto, I need you to get Sakura, Hinata and Shikamaru to go find Sasuke and help him defeat Gaara. Here, take Pakin with you. He said as he stabbed another Sannin in the stomach with his kunai before summoning a small brown pug with large brown eyes and a small blue vest and matching Konoha headband on. Pakin, lead Naruto and his team to Sasuke. I gotta start fighting, so get going as fast as you can. And with that Kakashi started killing people left and right. What surprised me was when he pushed up his Leaf headband to reveal his Sharingan. I looked for Sakura and Hinata, only to find them trying to convince Shikamaru to get up, and I just shook my head at the lazy ninja and stomped my foot on his ass, causing him to yelp. Kakashi-sensei said you needed to come with us to help us retrieve Sasuke and defeat Gaara. You don't come along, then you'll be resisting the order of a Jonin, which would result in your mom bitching. Want that? No? Then get the fuck up and get a move on. I heard the pineapple-haired genin mutter troublesome but ignored it in favor of punching a hole through the wall and hopping through, jumping into the trees as I started following Sasuke's chakra signature. Pakin was right net to me, Sakura behind me, Shikamaru behind her with Hinata bringing up the rear. Hopefully Sasuke was waiting for us, and not attacking head-on like a dumbass. Sasuke's POV. Fighting Kankuro wasn't fun, especially when you kept getting cut with items that were coated in poison. That was what was happening with me right now, but ever so slowly I was getting the upper hand. Kankuro had many tricks in his puppets, but I was learning them all every time he used one. Slowly, I was leading an unknowing Kankuro towards a push that, if touched, would instantaneously become itchy wherever they were touched, and just as Kankuro wasn't even 2 feet from the bush, I shunned Shinette in front of him and kicked him back as I tore off his catsuit so he'd get the full effect. However, it seems as though Kankuro went commando, so when I realized that I immediately turned around and threw up. Wiping my mouth, I didn't dare look back at Kankuro as I dropped the ripped catsuit and darted into the trees to try and find Gaara and defeat him. Everything was rushing by me as I focused on one being, one scent, one chakra. Gaara, from what I could sense, was not going far at the slow pace he was going at, and I used that to my advantage as I sped up to find him. By the time I'd reached him, he was holding on to a tree for support, shudders going throughout his body as he lifted his head to stare at me. An eye glowing in ethereal gold with a black star in the middle and a sea foam green eyes stared at me, and I stared right back, unable to move as fear overtook my body. I'm going to kill you. Sasuke. Uchiha, his voice made it sound like he'd gargled gravel, and without skipping a beat he burst forward, and I was able to nick myself on a shuriken attached to my weapons pouch and jump away just as Gaara's arm was surrounded by sand and swung it where I'd just been. It would have been a blow that would have surely crushed bones, and I could only sigh in relief that I hadn't just gotten so gravely wounded before I was forced on the defense yet again, jumping and dodging to the sides and backwards, sometimes even having to flip forwards as I avoided Gaara's giant sand arm. Ever so slowly the sand started creeping its way over Gaara's skin, enveloping his arm, leg and the right side of his face completely. I tried throwing shuriken and kunai, but Gaara's sand just absorbed them and shot them right back at me, so I could only do one thing. Flipping back 15 branches, I'd bought myself just enough time to fly through the hand signs for the Chidori. Soon the sound of 1,000 chirping birds filled the ears of Gaara and myself, and when he was finally on the branch in front of me I leapt forward, yelling Chidori, as I thrust my hand forward and into Gaara's heart, but at the very last second Gaara's sand threw my arm slightly to the side, so I ended up only piercing Gaara's right shoulder, which left both his shoulders wounded. He screamed, and as the chakra around my hand died down I tried pulling my fist away, only for the sand to wrap itself around my hand and start grinding my knuckles together, slowly putting more pressure, till my knuckles were chipping off against each other, and all I could do was stand there and take the pain while I gritted my teeth, unable to do anything else. With a sickening crack that echoed throughout the woods, he'd had enough toying around, and her broke my knuckles against each other, eliciting a cry of pain that escaped my mouth unwanted. My hand was spit out from Gaara's sand before Gaara lifted his left hand against me, and I was too focused on cradling my broken fist to my chest when he punched my temple, sending me flying into a tree. I didn't see anything else, but I felt the sudden rush of power near Gaara, and I smiled softly as I drifted off, unable to stay awake any longer. Naruto's POV. I arrived in the clearing where I sensed Gaara and Sasuke just as said Uchiha was punched into a tree. I rushed straight in, bones shooting from every inch of my body that would still allow me movement as I rushed in. Gaara was both unprepared for my speed and for the spikes protruding through my skin, so it was easy to land a punch to his face. He hit a tree and slumped down onto a branch, but it would have been too easy if he hadn't stood back up. "You're strong, Uzumaki. Make me feel alive," Gaara said as sand started completely surrounding him out of nowhere, and there was only one thing I could to stop him. I turned on my Rinnegan and my eyes shot open, glaring at Gaara, and with a wave of my hand and a large blast of chakra I sent him back 50 feet. Shinra Tensei. Gaara flew backwards into another tree, and I decided not to slack at all. Bancho Tenin. Every time I brought him towards me, I'd send chakra into my fist and punch him backwards again, and before long I'd knocked him out. Which proved to be a very bad and very stupid thing indeed. I'm back. Of course, knocking out an unstable fellow demon holder like Gaara, who apparently had one of the weakest seals in the history of seals, would have their demon unleashed by getting knocked out. Of fucking course. Who are you, Pip Squeak? Damn, the Ichibi sure is fucking loud. No wonder Gaara's insane. Then it struck me. Wait a second. If the Ichibi comes out when Gaara's unconscious, then Gaara was keeping his village safe by not sleeping, even though that turned him psycho. Holy shit, the sand village is fucked up. It was then I decided to help out Gaara, who understood me and I him. First things first, I had to deal with the Ichibi. Oh. Look who has the Rinnegan. How did you get my father's eyes, you little shit? My ears were going to start to bleed, and since my team couldn't stay here with me any longer, I told the to grab Sasuke and head back to Konoha before turning back to face the Ichibi. So Ichibi, I don't think you know this, but I contain the Kyuubi. You know, your older and far more powerful sibling? I'll make a deal with you. Go back into the seal, or I'll be forced to kick your ass. The Ichibi just started laughing at me, and I didn't like that one bit. Shinra Tensei, I said without a care, and with the flick of my wrist the Ichibi was sent flying back. You motherfuck dash. Bansho Tenin. That sent the Ichibi behind me, and when I turned I saw him spitting out dirt. I wasn't prepared for him spitting out dirt-filled airwaves at me though, so I was immediately hit and sent backwards. Fucking hell, that hurt. I muttered to myself before sand started creeping towards me across the forest floor. Bitch. 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 I'm a boss-ass bitch, 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 bitch. Naruto's eye twitched. That was a song Sakura had sang a lot during their training trip as she was a fan of a woman that came from Kumo. It was one of the more annoying songs the Pinkette had sang, and Naruto was fed up with that bullshit. Shinra Tensei. Naruto yelled as he sent most his chakra into it this time, thoroughly confusing the Ichibi and sending the giant sand form backwards, but Naruto cancelled the justice halfway in exchange for Bansho Tenin, and just like that the Ichibi was on its stomach, had exposed with swirls in its eyes. Naruto knew this opportunity wouldn't last long, so he sent chakra into his feet and jumped forward onto the Ichibi's head before taking off at a run towards Gaara's unmoving form. Once Naruto was nearly there, he felt sand start to try and wrap around his feet, so he asked for a Kyuubi chakra loan and sent it to his feet, thoroughly succeeding in keeping the sand away from capturing him. Wake the fuck up! Naruto yelled as he punched Gaara, waking the sleeping redhead. The sand started falling, and Gaara and Naruto fell a short fall to the ground and laid there, Gaara waiting for help and Naruto waiting for the same. Naruto looked over at Gaara, and slowly stood up and started walking to him. Gaara's eyes filled with fear as the redhead told Naruto to stay back, but the blonde didn't listen. Instead, Naruto kneeled down beside Gaara and lifted the boy's shirt, looking for his seal. The seal was a small one right over Gaara's heart, and Naruto knew who to ask about changing it up and moving it. After that, Naruto smiled at Gaara softly, something he didn't often do, and he laid down next to the redhead as black started overcoming his vision. You and I aren't so different. We both demon holders, hated for something we can't control. I've got people who believe in me. Not best friends or anything, but people I can rely on and off the field. I could be your ally, most likely your first. I don't care about what you hold for obvious reasons, and we can rely on each other on and off the field. Sound good? The last thing Naruto saw was Gaara nodding before he fell asleep, and he didn't feel quite so bad about sleeping on the job. Naruto's POV. Antiseptic, blinding white glaring at me whenever I try opening my eyes. Who the fuck brought me to the hospital? I hate this place. Naruto shot up and opened his eyes quickly so that he wasn't staring at the blindingly white ceiling as soon as he dared open his eyes, but while that preserved his eyeballs, it only caused a headache to form, or at least make itself known from the fast movement of his head. Naruto's head fell into his hand with a light smack, but Naruto paid the noise nor the slight pain originating from his forehead as he groaned and closed his eyes, trying to will his headache to leave him be. However, it did not leave right away, it slowly ebbed away till all that was left was a dull ache, and Naruto took this time to stand up. He was slightly wobbly, but he managed to keep standing, so he attempted to walk. Naruto immediately regretted this decision when, as soon as he stepped forward, he dropped like a log. He brought his hand up to protect his head, but that hurt his hand. Better my hand than my teeth, he thought wryly as he tried pushing himself up. The best he did was turn himself over onto his back, and that's when he called for a nurse. "Hello? I'm kinda on the ground right now," he yelled out, and soon enough the nurse rushed in and helped him back onto the bed. There was a faint hint of red upon her cheeks, and Naruto frowned as he tried to figure out why. "Excuse me, but are you sickly? You're turning red," he asked, and the woman's faint blush turned into a completely red face, and as soon as his head hit the pillow she dashed out of the room. "Women," Naruto sighed out as he shook his head. The day he understood the female gender was the day he cared to get a girlfriend. That sure as hell isn't happening anytime soon. Why even have a girlfriend anyway? None of the girls I know are better cooks than I am. He had this feeling that saying that to anyone of the female gender would get him killed, so such thoughts remained in his head only. After another hour of laying in bed, Naruto was bored out of his mind. "Nurse!" he yelled out, and the same nurse that helped him into bed came in, and she blushed yet again when she saw him. He, again, raised an eyebrow before deciding to see what she found so interesting about him, and when he looked down he saw that his hospital gown had ridden up unnoticed by himself, and so everything from the waist down could be seen. He groaned, resisting the urge to yell at the woman that it was just a penis, when he saw her turn her head away, her face the color of a cherry. Do dicks really warrant this much attention from girls? He couldn't help but ask himself. "Excuse me, miss, but this hospital is boring as hell. Do you mind helping me relearn how to walk so I can leave this place?" She nodded with her blush ever present and kept her face away from Naruto, up until he was out of bed and his hospital gown had fallen back into place. Naruto hated how dependent he was of the woman with his first few steps, but it only took him around 5 minutes to start walking normally again. As he sat back down on the bed, the nurse gave him his clothes back in a pile, leaving a note on top before leaving, blushing as she winked at him. He frowned again, not knowing what that meant either. Sighing, he shrugged and read the note. "Dear Naruto, for being such a good patient, I want you to visit my house at 6 o'clock for dinner. Sound good? I've heard you like ramen, so that'll be on the menu if you want. I live on Abercrombie Street, I'm in the apartment building, the Golden Dragon, and my room number is number 6. Can't wait to see you. Ah." He shrugged off the weird vibe he got from the note that he couldn't quite place and decided to go before getting dressed. Once his shoes and headband were on, he put the note from and into his pocket before leaving. And was waiting by the door, and he waved to her as he left. She winked, again, and he, again, did not know what that wink meant. He decided to go to his training grounds for the day to try and get a good workout before 6, and so he did just that. Everyone he passed by was somber for a reason that Naruto could not place, but he just thought it was from him being around them, so he easily dismissed it. Training felt good, as it helped him stretch out and work on his speed after being in the hospital for the last few days, and when he looked up at the sky and saw that it was around 5 o'clock, he started for his apartment. He took a shower, washed off, brushed his teeth as they weren't looking as bright as normal, and then got dressed. He decided on a navy blue civilian shirt with a black Uzumaki shirt on the back, a pair of black cargo shorts and a pair of black ninja sandals. He tied his Kanahagakure headband around his neck and didn't do anything with his hair before leaving, heading towards Abercrombie. It was a nice enough street located in the civilians' middle-class section of town, and the apartment building was nice enough as well. The outside was a dark, chocolate-colored wood, and the doors were made about the same material. As Naruto walked up to the lady behind the front desk and asked where and lived, as soon as the name came out of his mouth, the lady pointed to the hallway to the right. Raising an eyebrow at how fast her reaction was, he just shrugged off the weirdness and went down the pointed to hallway till he reached door number 6. He knocked on it twice and waited, and not 10 seconds later and opened it, clad in a strapless black dress that went to her mid-thigh. It was skin-tight, and she wore black 3-inch pumps to finish off the outfit, her hair done in a simplistic ponytail. "Naruto, I'm so glad you came. Come in, come in. She stepped aside to let him through, and he did as he was told. He instantly smelled the ramen and knew it to be beef. Thanks for making dinner. She smiled at him and took him by the arm, leading him through her living room and into the kitchen. It was no problem. Tell me, Naruto, you do like beef ramen, right? He nodded, and she smiled again. Thank goodness, I don't know what I'd do if you didn't. I'll be right back, I have to finish cooking. Make yourself at home. And then left him in the dining room, moving through the attached doorway into what he could tell with his nose was the kitchen. Naruto, do you know why I invited you here? Anne asked without even turning to look at him. To eat dinner, right? He said in an offhand way, and it was then she turned around and looked him in the eye. Are you sure of that? He looked at her, his confusion showing in his eyes. I thought so, yeah. She sighed and shook her head before turning back to the ramen. Please go sit down, Naruto, the ramen's about done. Naruto nodded and walked out of the kitchen, and then stood there with her head in hand. She chuckled as she realized how much preparation she'd put into banging the Uzumaki, only for him to not understand. Maybe I'll give him sex ed some other time, she thought pervertedly as she started pouring the ramen into 2 bowls. After that they ate dinner, talking lightly and making small talk as they ate, and after he helped her clean the dish, Naruto thanked her and turned to leave. Wait! And said loudly as her hand reached out and took hold of his shoulder. Wadash was all Naruto could say before and kissed him lightly on the cheek as soon as he turned his head in her direction, and he felt himself blush slightly. Good night, Anne. He said, but she giggled at the slight stutter in his voice as he made his way out. Night, Naruto. She said happily at his back, and as soon as he'd stepped out of Anne's apartment he shunned to his apartment, red-faced. Since he'd been teleported outside his door he pulled out his key that he always kept in his pocket and started unlocking the door, when a sheet of paper taped to the door caught his attention. Dear Naruto, I do not know if you've heard, but our Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, is dead. With this death we must find a new Hokage, and since I have refused to position it is up to me to find my old teammate, Tsunade Senju, to put her in this position. You will be going with me, as you are a far more persuasive person than I am, and you will be a key factor in persuading her into coming back. You have until Tuesday to pack and tell your friends and teammates you're leaving. I expect you to be all packed and ready to go when I stop by one Tuesday to pick you up. Jiraiya of the Sannin. P.S. The old man's funeral is tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Don't be late, wear all black, and bring an umbrella if you hate the rain, because I have a feeling tomorrow is going to be wet. The funeral was held the next day, just as Jiraiya had said, and there was not a hint of happiness that day. The clouds were like a coat over the blue sky that usually blessed Konoha, leaving nothing but a large expanse of white and gray mixed in together as rain poured from their confines, the droplets falling surely at a slow, steady pace. The people who spoke at the ceremony were Jiraiya, Hiruzen's son Asuma, and his 2 former teammates Hamura and Koharu. Everyone else just stood there, hands clasped in front of them with their heads bent down as they stared blankly at their feet. After the people had said their goodbyes, the coffin was brought to the cemetery. A small group of jonin, led by Kakashi, went off to carve the name Hiruzen Sarutobi into the memorial stone that the silver-haired nin visited so often, and that's when they started digging the grave. When the ceremony had ended, not a single person wanted to leave the gravesite, only wanting to mourn in front of the gravestone, but slowly the people trickled away, till only Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto stood in front of the grave. They turned around at the same time, and they all started walking away at the same time. Do you guys want to stay over at my house? Naruto asked offhandedly as they met the fork in the road where Sasuke was the first to leave. Yeah. HN. Assuming that Sasuke agreed, yet couldn't find his voice to say so outright, they all stayed together, walking to Naruto's apartment in peace, even though on the inside their minds and hearts were troubled and heavy with grief, though some held more of these feelings than others. Not even a week later Naruto was leaving Konoha with Jiraiya, waving goodbye to Sasuke, Sakura and Hinata as he walked through the gate. Chapter 13. Wow, I think Kakashi-sensei is a better traveling companion than you are, Jiraiya-san. Naruto said as he shuffled down the road, kicking up dirt as he walked alongside his temporary traveling companion. Haha, brat. I'm the gallant Jiraiya. I'm the best traveling companion ever. Naruto scoffed as Jiraiya stopped mid-step to stick a gallant pose, which only made him look ridiculous. If Naruto had had a childish humor like some, he would have laughed. However, that was not the case. Is there any way we can make this more interesting without spying on women? By now, 3 weeks into their trip, Naruto had picked up on Jiraiya's perverted habits, and even though he didn't know all that much on the opposite sex, he could very well guess from how badly they'd beat up Jiraiya that such habits were not appreciated. You've just not experienced a woman yet, brat. They like that I spy on them, they just can't show it. The 13-year-old resisted the urge to face floor as he walked along his self-proclaimed super pervert sensei, and he could barely resist the urge to punch this man as hard as he could and just walk back to Konoha. However, he always reminded himself of the fact that one of the village's elders could very well become Hokage, and that was something Naruto would not allow, so he kept in that very tempting urge. They stopped in a village, rather generic looking, nothing truly special about it, but the women were pretty looking, and Naruto rolled his eyes. Jiraiya was quick to drop Naruto off at a hotel, and as soon as the 13-year-old was in the room he took off, most likely to a whorehouse or a bathhouse. Naruto sighed and threw himself back onto a bed, pulling the blanket out from underneath him and pulling it up to his shoulders before turning to his side, curling up in a ball. He slept light, and his ears twitched when he heard the sound of footsteps. He groggily woke up, but when he realized that the footsteps were getting closer he wiped his eyes quickly and tried hearing better. The feet were drawing ever closer, and Naruto's eyes widened. From what he could tell, these chakra signatures were far larger than normal, and he knew that he couldn't handle one person with a chakra capacity that large, let alone two, so he quickly fixed his outfit and moved over to the window. Locked. Fuck. Why did Jiraiya have to take fucking keys? Naruto asked himself as he tried sorting out his thoughts. There was a short knock on the door then, and Naruto's eyes widened. Not 5 seconds later someone knocked on the door again, and Naruto mentally grasped around for a plan. I don't know how to hide my chakra, and I can't get out unless I break the window, and I could very well cut myself on the glass shard if I try climbing through. Fucking hell, Jiraiya, the one time I need you to be here you're gone. Naruto didn't open the door, instead he took out 2 kunai, ninja wire, and a paper smoke bomb, and once he'd secured one end of the wire around one kunai and the other end around the second he attached the smoke bombs to the kunai, activating them so they'd turn on upon contact of the kunai. After the 5th knock the door was kicked open, revealing a man with pale skin and black hair, his eyes a clashing red and black pattern, and he had 2 lines running from the middle of his nose to the end of it, going outwards towards the end. The second man was blue, on his cheeks were dill-like openings, making it look like he breathed out of them, and his teeth were razor-sharp looking, his hair spiky and a large sword was resting on his shoulder. They wore black, high-collared cloaks and with red clouds adorning them, and Naruto was quick to jump into action. As soon as they started to step inside he threw his wire at their feet as the blue one was in mid-step, and thus he could not do anything in time as he accidentally triggered the smoke trap. 2 large poofs of smoke billowed into the air, and the pair of nin started coughing, but Naruto wasn't bothered by it. He tried moving around them, but the pale one grabbed his arm, thus stalling his movements almost completely. Naruto tried thinking, and as the smoke cleared slightly he grinned. He put his hands into a cross sign, yelling out Shadow Clone Jutsu, as he created as many as he could fit into that room and half the hallway outside, and as soon as he'd set his sights on the nearest one he Kawarimi'd with it, and so he was freed from the pale man's death grip. He started to run away as the blue man started swinging his sword left and right, dispelling clones as he went, and the pale man was shunshin behind clones, dispatching them with a kunai and shuriken as he moved around with his chakra. I felt a shiver of foreboding rush through my body, and I sent chakra into my rib cage, sending the bones outwards to protect my middle just as a kunai flew towards M's spine, the bone and metal making a loud ringing noise upon contact before the kunai dropped to the floor. I kept running, a little awkwardly now that bones were poking out of my middle, when another shiver of foreboding rushed through me. Not thinking about my decision twice, I pushed the bones sticking out of my sides outwards, causing them to stick into the walls or get flung in front or behind me as I unsealed Kubikiribocho, spinning around on my left foot and holding it in front of me in a block as a kunai, held by the pale man, reached me, the metal of the Kubikiribocho singing a sweet tune as the kunai broke. The pale man stepped back, slightly startled, and then the blue man behind him laughed, his head thrown back as his left hand rushed up to hold his stomach. You have Zabuza's sword? Ha! Oh, he would be so pissed to see his precious sword in the hands of a brat. Let me help you out, kid. I think I'll wield that sword far better. This is my fight, Itachi, don't intervene for once. He yelled as he lunged forward, holding his sword above his right shoulder and swinging it down into an arc as he landed in front of Naruto, Itachi only just moving out of the way in time to avoid the chakra-munching sword. Naruto swung Kubakira Bosho in an upwards right to left arc, and the two blades bounced back upon contact, and their wielders jumped back from the unexpected force. You're stronger than you look, you little shit. Maybe one day you could have been an actually talented swordsman, but as it stands now I'm gonna beat your ass dash. Itachi! Someone yelled from behind Naruto, and everyone looked and saw one Sasuke Uchiha standing there, Sharingan flaring in his eyes and glowing crimson in rage. Sasuke! Get the fuck out of here! Naruto yelled at his teammate, but said yells fell upon deaf ears. Sasuke charged at Itachi, charging up Chidori as he ran towards his former idol. Said Uchiha only glanced at his younger brother's advancing form, taking but a single second to grab his brother's arm and redirect it into the wall beside him with a twist, breaking the wrist. Arg! Was the noise that clawed out of Sasuke's throat as the pain hit him instantaneously, sending painful sensations throughout his body. He grit his teeth and wrenched his arm out of the wall, turning back towards Itachi, growling. Naruto was now, once again, battling against the blue man, though it was rather one-sided. Since the humanoid shark was obviously far more skilled, Naruto was relying on his strength, sending hard blows towards his foes to keep him away, sending chakra into his arms to make sure they did not tense or cramp, making sure to also temporarily strengthen the muscles. Both were fighting one-sided fights, but since Itachi was far stronger than the blue man, Sasuke was getting beaten worse than Naruto was, but now by much. Naruto's chakra was getting sucked from him every few seconds, but by bit whenever the blue man got through his amateurish blocks, and the blue man was grinning like an idiot, obviously enjoying himself. Itachi was using one hand, his right, to redirect Sasuke's movements, rarely using his second. It seemed like 1 second for Sasuke when he was trying to hit Itachi, at the very least scratch high, when all of a sudden he was side-kicked down the hall, leaving an imprint in the wall he hit, his head smacking loudly as it bounced off said wall. Naruto gritted his teeth as he focused all his attention on his fight with the blue man, trying his best to ignore the great need he felt to look back at his nearly unconscious teammate. As he and the blue man fought, he began to notice a pattern, and his eyes widened as he started using the pattern against his abnormal opponent, when all of a sudden the walls, floor, and ceiling turned pink, soft, and squishy, causing everyone to freeze and look at their changed surroundings. Within a minute, Jiraiya had shown up and chased off both Itachi and the blue man, leaving behind a tired blonde, a knocked out, greatly injured young teenager and a wrecked hotel floor. As Jiraiya kneeled over to check on Sasuke, a figure clad in green burst through the window, kicking Jiraiya in the head, sending the white-haired ninja into a wall. Naruto and Gai-sensei chatted for a small bit before Gai picked Sasuke's unconscious form and left, going out the window he'd broken, as he didn't want to bother with the hotel manager. Naruto and Jiraiya quickly hightailed it out of the hotel after grabbing their stuff, and so they started heading towards the next town, in search of the elusive Tsunade Senju. Say kid, how big do you like a pair of tits? Jiraiya asked with his signature perverted giggle as they walked down the road, and a tick mark appeared on Naruto's face. Pervert. I can't wait to tell this teammate Tsunade of yours about you trying to turn me into a mini-you. He said it nonchalantly, but Jiraiya shivered in fear for the promise of pain the simple statement brought with it. Never mind, brat. Never fucking mind. Then maybe you shouldn't become Hokage. Damn, Kono fucking Hamaru, a 6-year-old, has a better fucking attitude than this bitch, Jiraiya. Please remind me why you wasted my time by dragging me along with you? Naruto said, switching from talking to Tsunade to Jiraiya easily. What would you know, brat? You know nothing of losing loved ones, of watching them die and knowing that you could have saved them had you been there sooner. Tsunade said, her tone sad and angry, and her breath stank as sake. Naruto's eyes froze, turning a crystal blue as they glared at Tsunade, and as the older woman stared into the ice-blue orbs of the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, she couldn't help the involuntary shiver that raced down her spine. You're right, Tsunade-sama. He said, his tone mocking as he said her name, and she flinched when he leaned back, his glare not weakening in the slightest, his new position only making him look more disapproving. I don't know what it's like because I don't have any family related by blood. I never knew my father, nor the woman who birthed me. I could very well not be an Uzumaki, That could just be a name I was given because someone thought I might bring the once fierce tricking name justice. I wouldn't know what it would feel like to watch a loved one die because I don't fucking have one. Go on, have your fucking pity party, but I sure as hell won't be giving you any pity, because you sure as fuck don't deserve it. You grew up with parents, a loving grandpa, a caring sensei, and 2 teammates who didn't formerly not care about you. I don't have any of that, and the cherry on top is that I'm pretty sure you had a brother. I'd fucking kill to have a sibling for 5 minutes, and if they died I'd cherish the limited time I'd had with them. You act as if your life is some fucking sob story, like you just pulled the shortest ass stick of them all. Jiraiya, I'm going to the hotel, I don't have time to deal with this bullshit. Naruto stood up, bowed to Shizen, the pretty sidekick of Lady Tsunade's, and then left the bar, not caring to look back. Hey brat! You get the fuck back here! He heard Tsunade Senju yell at his back, and he turned to glare at her. What? His voice was as cold as ice, and his eyes were the color to match, but Tsunade had apparently taken another swig of sake, as she only grinned lazily right back at him. Tell you what. You beat me in a fight, and not only will I become Hokage, but I'll give you this necklace. She said as she lifted up the jewel that was held up by the black string tied around her neck. It looked expensive, and as Naruto looked it over he nodded before motioning outside. Tsunade nodded and stood up, her steps slightly shaky as she walked outside behind Naruto, who didn't spare her a glance as he made his way outside. When Jiraiya, Shizune and Tonton were standing beside the door of the bar they just exited and Naruto and Tsunade stood opposite each other, facing the other as they prepared themselves. I bet I can defeat you with one finger. Tsunade said cockily, a smug, drunken smirk set firmly upon her face. Her brown eyes looked at him, emotion swirling in their depths as she stared into his seemingly frozen eyes, his face set like stone. Go! Shizen yelled reluctantly on the sidelines, clutching Tonton like a lifeline. Tsunade just stood there, and Naruto frowned as he thought over his position. Tsunade most likely wouldn't be moving from her spot anytime soon, so that left him to come up with a plan fast. As one hit him all of a sudden, he grinned before running forward, bones bursting from his arms and the outside of his legs. He made bone from his shoulders surround his skull somewhat for head protection as he went in, and he immediately realized that Tsunade was shocked by his move. His grin growing as he moved closer, Tsunade snapped out of her trance just in time to avoid Naruto's punch and try hitting him with her finger, but he dodged and threw a side kick towards her midsection, causing her to block with her right arm and try tapping his ankle before he retracted his leg, but Naruto was quick enough to prevent the move. As Naruto spun around her, she dropped and did a semicircle, aiming to kick Naruto's legs out from underneath him. It worked, and if it weren't for the fact that he immediately jumped onto his hand to flip away, she would have gotten him to the ground like she'd wanted. Stop moving, you damn brat. I never understood why people asked their enemies that. Like, seriously, did you think that I'd just stop and let myself get defeated because you asked me to? Naruto replied back, and Tsunade froze in mid-motion to think it over, her finger right in front of Naruto's face. He immediately used her distraction to his advantage and backflipped away, which caused her to realize that he'd gotten away. Fucking hell, you brat! She yelled at him, and he raised his eyebrow at her. Is that the only insult you and Jiraiya can think up on the spot? Wow, such ingenuity for 2 of the great Sannin, I'm so very impressed. Naruto said mockingly, and Tsunade's eyebrow twitched at his mockery of her person. She growled as she ran towards him, and his eyes widened at her rage. Shit, he thought as he thought of what he could do to stall the angered woman rushing towards him, and he dodged to the side as she finally got close enough to try and punch him, but the bone along his right arm were mostly shattered, leaving jagged pieces poking out barely. His eyes widened, and instinctively he created a shadow clone to take care of Tsunade whole he though up what to do, and not a second later Tsunade destroyed his clone, but he'd already figured out his next step. As she destroyed the ground in between them as she rushed at him, he got into a crouched stance and held his right hand with his left, sending chakra into his arm, nearly distracting himself with the beauty of the Rinnegan in his hand before he snapped out of his fascination of the swirling, bright blue color, running towards Tsunade, causing the distance to close in an instant. As Tsunade's fist rushed for Naruto's face, Naruto's Rinnegan rushed at her arm to stop her. The Rinnegan hit Tsunade's arm just as her fist hit Naruto's face, and while Tsunade's hand was blown behind her, dislocating it, Naruto was sent flying back, dirt and dust flying up as he passed them by at high speeds. He crashed into a building, and the shock of the feeling hit him like a ton of bricks, causing him to fall unconscious as his body flew through the wood of the old, rotting building. The next morning. Fucking hell. Naruto muttered as he woke up groggily, not caring enough to open his eyes, for all he cared about in that moment was the fact that he was warm and that he wasn't dying or already there. I'm sorry about Tsunade-sama. I didn't think she'd go that hard on you, but you did give her a rather good fight, said Shizun as she sat down beside Naruto, a platter of mint tea in hand. Naruto had smelled the calming scent as soon as he'd woken up, and so when Shizun sat him up in his bed he happily accepted the drink, gulping it down despite the heat of the fluid. Thank you, Shizun. The only thing I'm sorry about was that I couldn't beat Tsunade, but then again she is a Sannin, so I guess I should have known better. The tea was good by the way, but next time you should put a bit more sugar or honey in it. I like my tea sweet if you don't mind me saying, Naruto said as he took off the bandages wrapped around his eyes and forehead, ignoring the protesting of Shizun while doing so. See? I'm already healed due to my special condition that I'm pretty sure you are aware of, and if not, then Tsunade is most likely knowledgeable of my inner companion so you can ask her, he said as he moved the bandages to the side, standing up from the bed before stretching. You and Naruto? Why you're naked? Shizun stuttered from behind Naruto, and as he turned to give her his infamous "and why should I care" look, she looked down and blushed even more, immediately excusing herself with the tray of tea as she moved away from the naked teen. Shrugging off her behavior, Naruto walked around in all his naked glory to find his clothes, and the sight of him, crouched, looking under his bed was the sight that greeted Shizun when she stepped into the room again to give Naruto his freshly washed clothes, and she immediately started blushing before throwing Naruto's clothes onto his head, hastily leaving the room with her hands clutching her cheeks. Again, Naruto had no idea what she had been thinking or why she'd reacted that way, so she just shrugged and got dressed, deciding to forego a shirt for the day and, instead of his regular shorts, he put on a pair of light, yet slightly baggy, black cargo pants. On his feet were black ninja sandals, and around his neck was his hidden leaf hitayate. After he stretched a bit more he left the room, and as soon as he opened the door he smelled the rice cooking, although they didn't have much of a scent, and his stomach grumbled in response. He quickly followed his nose to where Shizun was cooking, and as he sat down at the table she showed up with a medium-sized bowl of rice, a medium bowl of miso soup, and the drink was mint tea. Thank you, Naruto said before digging in, not watching his eating habits. Shizun's eyes widened as she took in his horrible habit, and she immediately smacked the back of his head. Ow! What did you do that for? Naruto asked in a loud tone. Straighten your back. Naruto looked at the woman and frowned, which resulted in her smacking him on the head again. Straighten your back. This time Naruto listened, and he was rewarded with a bright smile from Shizun. Said woman then took a seat across from him and, after getting her own dishes set up, she looked over to him. Okay, when you eat, I don't want you to slouch, and I certainly do not want you eating like a wild beast. So that whole morning Shizun taught Naruto table etiquette, and he remembered everything for the most part, and it was around that time that Jiraiya and Tsunade came in, both grumpy looking and definitely not in their highest spirits. About time you woke up, brat. You've been sleeping for 2 days now, Jiraiya said when he noticed that Naruto was awake. I was asleep for that long? Of course you were, Blondie. If it weren't for me you'd still be out of service. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard the Kyuubi's voice echo in his mind, but quickly made his eyes go back to normal before he stood up to help Shizun clean the dishes, something she'd told him was polite and what you did for girls you liked. What he didn't notice was her blush when she realized that he was helping her, but she then forced herself back on the dishes she was scrubbing after some mental coaxing. He doesn't like you, Shizun, he's way too naive for that, she told herself mentally as she cleaned out a bowl, pondering anything and everything that she could but the blonde teen that stood beside her, drying and putting away the dishes. Naruto, come with me, Jiraiya said as he walked up to his pupil, and Naruto only shrugged with a nod before leaving with him. Tsunade shook her head and yelled at Shizun for some sake, and said assistant sighed sadly and listened, all the while Tonton lay on Shizun's bed asleep, apparently undisturbed even with all the noise that had just surrounded him. Wow, Jiraiya, you look more hungover than usual. Let me guess, Tsunade drank you under the bar and is, even now, requesting more sake. Naruto stated more than asked in a sarcastic, smartass tone, and Jiraiya threw him a withering look from his place on the street. No. She drugged me to go meet with Orochimaru. Motherfucking brat. Jiraiya yelled back, muttering the last part to himself. Well, Jiraiya, my mom was most likely a hot chick, so I might have had she stayed alive till now. Naruto replied back cheekily, having heard Jiraiya's muttering from his perch on the windowsill. Cheeky brat. Jiraiya muttered, only to growl when Naruto reminded the sage, yet again, that he was heard. You said Tsunade went to greet Orochimaru? Fuck, Shizune, you watch Jiraiya, I've gotta go save the old lady's ass. Naruto said, all of a sudden serious before he dashed away, his feet glowing blue as he ran away faster than they could see so early in the morning. Naruto was enjoying the wind in his face and the breeze thrashing his hair around, and he couldn't resist smiling at how freeing it felt to run like he was. He inhaled deeply with his nose, and he caught a whiff of Tsunade's ever-present scent of sake and salt crackers, moving towards the destination with all his speed. He ran past the broken-down wall, and soon enough he found Tsunade facing off against both Orochimaru and Kabuto, and he smirked while narrowing his eyes. I always knew you weren't to be trusted. Naruto said as he stopped next to Tsunade in a crouch position, the chakra in his feet immediately working to keep his feet attached to the ground so that they wouldn't fly out from underneath him at his sudden halt, and as he stared into Kabuto's eyes he smiled. It was a bloodlusting smile, but he didn't care. Why friends trusted you, and you betray them by working with the snake. Tsunade, I'm sure you can hold off your former teammate while I take on his apprentice. I have some few choice words to speak with him, if you will. Tsunade nodded, and Naruto rushed forward faster than Kabuto was prepared to stop and punched the silver-haired Nin in the face, sending him backwards before following after him. Tsunade and Orochimaru were standing off, but when Orochimaru turned all of a sudden and chased after Naruto, Tsunade's eyes widened as she realized what he was aiming to do. Faster than she had ever run before, she jumped in front of Naruto back, and a gasp escaped her lips as Orochimaru's blade stabbed her in her forearm, and she quickly grasped it, only to freeze at the sight of blood dripping down her arm. Naruto himself heard the gasp and smelled the blood before he saw anything, but when he turned and saw Tsunade on the ground, clutching her arm, shivering, his eyes bled red and a sadistic smile came onto his face as Kyuubi's chakras started flowing through his body. Orochimaru. Go fuck yourself. Naruto said before he shunned Tsunade in front of Orochimaru, surprising the Nin enough for Naruto to gather up enough chakra into his hand, yell Rinnegan, and jam the ball of spinning chakra into the snake's stomach before Orochimaru blinked and got back to his senses. Naruto felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up, and out of pure instinct he spun around as he unsealed Kubikirabocho, effectively using the blade to block Kabuto's white chakra-covered hand from touching him. Naruto quickly saw the small chip in the blade and pulled it back for a short swing, jumping forward just enough that he was able to hit Kabuto as he backflipped away, and soon Kabuto's blood was working for the blade, the iron and the crimson liquid repairing the blade beautifully. I wonder how much blood I need to take from you before you drop dead. Naruto asked excitedly, his grin feral as he suddenly spun around on his right foot, his blade swinging in a wide arc, a loud note vibrating off when Naruto's Kubikirabocho was parried with Kusanagi. Soon the two men were in a battle of blades, but it was obvious that Naruto was tiring out faster than Orochimaru was due to the size of his blade. Tsunade, if you don't get that pretty blonde ass of yours up and running, I'm have to haunt you as a ghost when I get killed by your motherfucking teammate. Those seemed to do the trick, as Tsunade's eyes snapped up, and she suddenly stood up and ran over, her left hand healing her right arm in an instant. Naruto jumped back and Tsunade started battling Orochimaru herself, and just as Naruto sagged slightly he was punched in the back and sent forward via Kabuto's chakra punch. When Naruto tried standing up he found that a whole other part of his body worked instead, and when his eyes widened in shock his fingers started twitching instead. The Kyuubi's chakra quickly faded from his system, and Naruto frowned as he tried figuring out why. It took him 20 seconds, and within those 20 seconds Jiraiya and Shizune had arrived, but Naruto drowned them out as he focused on figuring out his new body controls, and he grinned when he started getting movements right. He stood up slowly, and he turned on his heel with a grin before running forward, picking Kubikirabosho from its placement in the ground as he ran past it, his aim being to reach Kabuto and Shizune where they were fighting. Kabuto seemed to notice Naruto only when he lifted Kubikirabosho above his blonde head in a down arc, and that gave Kabuto just enough time to cartwheel away. Naruto growled as Kyuubi's chakra filled him again, and with that he ran at Kabuto, but this time a fox tail made of red chakra grew at the end of his spine, and he grinned as he realized that he was faster now. When he swung his blade it came easier than it normally did, and his grin widened. Stronger too, he thought inwardly as his blade hit Kabuto, the strength behind the swung sending him flying to the side. Naruto smirked as he looked at Kabuto's fallen body, but his smirk disappeared when Kabuto shakily started standing up, and he growled when the man turned to face him. "Kabuto! Get over here now!" Orochimaru called, and when Naruto turned to look he laughed. The snake was getting his ass handed to him by his two teammates due to his unusable arms, and when Kabuto immediately ran over Naruto laughed. The silver-haired medic Nin looked like a lost puppy returning to its master, and Shizen even giggled slightly when she saw what was so funny. From there the two just watched as Orochimaru, even with his snake summon, got his ass beaten due to Jiraiya and Tsunade both summoning their own contract's boss. Orochimaru fled, and since no one had the energy to follow suit, they just dropped to the ground and relaxed, too tired to do anything. "Well, that's my workout covered for this week," Shizen said, trying to lighten the mood. Naruto threw his head back and laughed, and Tsunade started laughing as well, and soon Jiraiya started as well, and Shizen just sat there blushing. As Naruto stood there laughing he started feeling woozy, and it didn't take too long for the feeling to overcome him. He heard Shizen asking distantly if something was wrong, and screaming in shock when he started falling to the ground, unconscious before he even hit the ground. Time skip. It took them a total of 2.5 weeks to reach Konoha, but when they did Tsunade was urged to immediately become Hokage, and so that's what she did. Her speech wasn't anything out of the regular, but the sense of normalcy it gave everyone eased everyone's worries. The little stunt Konohamaru pulled was easily resolved by Naruto, but the blonde felt more tired than usual, and both Sasuke and Sakura saw it as well. The three asked Tsunade for a vacation, and when they each were granted permission they packed up some things and left Konoha, no destination in mind, but they couldn't care less about that. They wound up in Nami no Kunai, and they even talked with Tazuna about helping Konoha get rebuilt before playing with Inari and his friend S for the day. The next day of their vacation was spent at the docks, soaking up sun and enjoying the beach, though Naruto still felt more shitty than usual. "Why are we even here?" he asked himself. "I fucking hate this. Why do we have to waste time here when we could be going on missions?" His pessimistic side, his angry and hateful side had been taking a larger grip on him than usual, and when Sasuke and Sakura asked him what was wrong he just said he needs some space, and so he went for a walk. He went up to the large shipping dock and started walking down the pier, breathing in the salty air and, although he loved the smell, he hated that he wasn't feeling anything other than hate. Fighting fire with fire isn't very smart, but then again I don't give a fuck so. He sighed as he felt guilt, anger, and pain overwhelm him, and he hated that all these feelings started with a certain girl that he'd killed in this very country, with hair as black as a raven's feather and eyes as blue as the ocean that splashed beneath him. He remembered her kind smile, the first smile he remembered that was truly aimed at him, and his heart hardened when he remembered what she did. She betrayed me, why the fuck should I feel bad? It was a question that was bothering him, and had for a while, the question lingering in the darkest recesses of his mind, and just as he was turning around to go back to his friends he saw a flash of red, and he felt the Kyuubi stand up in his stomach, telling him to go towards the red. With apprehensive feet Naruto moved closer to where he had last seen the red, and when he saw a woman standing there, conversing with Tazuna about something, he fell to his knees and tears sprang to his eyes when he heard those three simple words being spoken by the Kyuubi. "That's your mom." The woman turned towards Naruto when she heard the sound of his knees hitting the dock, and her eyes widened and her hand flew to her mouth when she saw his familiar golden hair and blue eyes. "Naruto?" she asked shakily as she took a weary step forward, and when he nodded she ran forward, throwing her arms around her son in a way she'd wanted to since she'd first learned she saw pregnant. "Why were you not with me in Konoha?" he asked her, his voice slightly muffled by her Jonin flak jacket. "It's a long story." So there they sat on their knees, holding onto each other like a lifeline as Naruto buried his face into his mother's beautiful red hair, crying as he took in his mother's scent. She smelled of sea salt, pork ramen and strawberries, but he loved it, weird as it was. Sitting there in his mother's arms, for the first time in his life, Naruto cried out his feelings. He shed tears for Haku, he shed tears over how he wished he hadn't been the one to end her life, and he shed tears over the fact that he had been the one to rid this world of her smile, and when he just couldn't cry anymore he just sat there, his head resting upon his mother's breast as he truly relaxed. The secure embrace made him feel wanted, needed, and it was something he knew only his mother could provide, and he milked the feeling for all it was worth. When they finally stood up Naruto took out a kunai and took off his Konoha headband, using the blade to cut a line through the middle of the leaf symbol. He and, after some coaxing, Sasuke and Sakura went with Kushina to Uzushiobicure, to the land of Whirlpool. What they didn't know is that this move changed their life forever. Sasuke and Sakura cut lines through their leaf headbands as well, and they each secured their headbands around their neck. This is the story of Naruto Uzumaki. The story of Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki gone rogue.